Benson with District 2.
Good morning, I'm Jim Vaccaro, representing District 1.
I'm Don Deacon, good morning, and I represent District 4, but I want to say that all of us up here represent everybody north of 466. So,
Bill Williamson. Good morning, Rich Cole. I'm with the Center District.
Yes, ma'am. Carrie Duckett, Deputy District Manager. To my right is Jennifer Farlow, the District Clerk. And if I could have staff, please, in the back stand up and introduce yourself and your department, please. We got the whole team here today.
Okay, great. Thank you all. I appreciate you being here. Okay, we'll stand for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. Welcome to everybody in attendance. We appreciate you being here. This is one of our first discussions, the initial discussion about the budget for the coming 2025, only 2026 year. There will be several more discussions, but welcome. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you if you want to come up and do some audience comments about something that's not related to the budget. You will have 2 minutes to speak. We need your name and your address, please. And if you could all right now just silence your cell phones, we'd appreciate it. And if for some reason you're going to leave early before we're done, if you could just be quiet until you get outside the double doors. Okay? Thank you. So do we have anybody who wants to speak about something that's not budget related right now? No. Okay, and if we could, we did have a request from Mr. Carl Bell. Carl, is anybody who doesn't know, is the, come on up, Carl, because Carol wanted to speak. Oh, go ahead. And then Carol will.
My name is Gail Ballou, and I'm president of the Village's Billiards Club. And it's come to my attention that there are new billiards tables in the budget for children.
can you talk into the mic, please?
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
I'm Gail Ballou from the Village's Billiards Club, and it's come to my attention that there are new billiards tables in the budget for the Chula Vista Recreation Center during the next fiscal year. I believe that, I personally see no legitimate reason to be spending our amenities dollars on new tables at Chula Vista at this time, since those tables have no issues and if properly maintained should have many more years of life in them, given the tables are not used for large leagues, tournaments, or other activities that would wear them out anytime soon. However, La Hacienda, La Hacienda tables are one of the most heavily used tables in the villages for organized play, for tournament play, for drop-ins, perhaps because there are 8 tables, people find it's easier to get an empty table when they go in there. So, in my view, many tables are in need of replacement in this district. It's the table at La Hacienda, and for the following reasons. When pockets become loose on a table due to extensive use as they age and are not immediately repaired, the joints of the pockets are wooden peg joints. And when they become loose, as balls are pocketed, they wear down the surrounding wood, making it more and more difficult to repair. And successful repair means that the pockets can be tightly secured at a specific height to the rails so that when the balls are pocketed, they properly fall in. when they can no longer be adjusted as multiple tables are in the situation of at La Hacienda, the balls, the pockets can come loose. First of all, they don't fall into the pocket properly. They're playable, certainly, but they become loose regularly, and when they become loose, they drop. So when the cue ball goes in the pocket, it comes up and out and becomes a trajectory. And that can be dangerous, one thing. But the other thing that can happen, depending on how the pocket is fallen, the balls go in and they come back on the table, disrupting the game. So it's unfortunately, many of the pockets at LAHA have reached that point where the pockets can't be properly seated. And so it's a real issue there.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you don't feel we should be putting the full new tables in at Chula Vista, but Hacienda?
Correct.
That's your point?
Yes.
Okay, duly noted. We'll make a note of that. Thank you.
And I'd also like to suggest that, as was done when Silver Lake tables were replaced, that the billiards community has an opportunity to weigh in on what we have for tables. Because there are a couple of features on new tables that have been going in that have square corners, which are a problem, and the ball return tables at Silver Lake are fabulous tables, but people are old, they have to bend over and get down and get those balls, and it's a problem. So I'd like to see that change
Okay,
as
thank
well.
you. And I believe the rec department does ask for input from the various clubs, so
Great.
I'm sure it'll be taken into
appreciate that.
consideration.
Thank
Okay,
you for
thank
the
you very
time.
much. Okay, Mr. Bell.
Good morning, my name is Carl Bell, 214 Montoya Drive, the Villages, Florida. Madam Chairman, with your permission, I would prefer to speak under item 2A when Brandon speaks, with your permission.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bell, we are at 2A.
Oh, that's what I thought you were asking me. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're there. Yeah.
You guys are too fast.
I don't see two, well, I do see two right here now. Sorry, we're all confused.
Okay. Good morning. By way of introduction, my name is Carl Bell. I have lived for almost 31 years at 214 Montoya Drive in an area named Patio Village in the villages of Rio Ponderosa. I was the first resident to be appointed to a CDD 1 and served with 4 other landowners elected generally. The district manager in those early days was Gary Moyer. Gary was the person who helped write Statute 190 that the Florida legislature voted into law. As it is, it governs all CDDs in Florida. Gary was the one that educated me on this new government. I was reelected by landowner election to serve for several more years in CDD 1 board. I was then elected to serve on the AAC board. That's a wrong piece. On June 16, 2010, while serving on the AAC, I made a motion to adopt a resolution 210-18 that provided for a non-adjustment of the amenity fees for residents living north of 466. In the preceding months, the committee had met and discussed the deferment of amenity fees, held a workshop on the subject, consulted with our attorney, asked Village Center District to consult with their attorney, asked Barbara Kays, our then budget director, to research the potential effects of what we were proposing, and asked our then district manager, Janet Tutt, to do any additional due diligence to be sure we were on solid ground and would not violate any bond issue covenants. Once we passed and implemented our deferral, 2 years later, PWAC passed and implemented the same for their area south of 466. Today, the RAD fund has approximately $99 million in reserve with an annual budget of approximately $60 million. Within that budget, you annually contribute about $6 million to the reserves while paying between $6 and $12 million in debt service, so as to retire the RAD debt in 2036. The AAC is authorized for Exhibit B of the Intergovernmental Agreement, page 7, item 7, to establish from time to time a maximum amenity fee for the Center District Service Territory, such that increase by consumer price index or otherwise will not result in an amenity fee for a particular home site within the Center District Territory having to pay in excess of such maximum amount. I am here today to ask the AAC to consider implementing an amenity fee maximum rate for the 22,000 plus ratepayers in the Center District Territory. What the responsible rate should be will be determined by what financial information the AAC requests of and is provided by staff. If you choose to do this, I will also request that you review the overall financial condition on a periodic basis to be sure that we are maintaining adequate reserves. The great community that they have created, and that I get the privilege of living here. I am thankful that the developers team designed a funding system that would ensure the amenities are protected well enough that the AAC can elect to defer our increases in our amenities fees. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and the information you provided to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
It's been a lot of years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and thank you for putting it in writing so we can see it, look at it later.
Same house, 31 years. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think we're ready to begin the workshop.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Brandy Cook will kick off our budget workshop.
Good morning, Brandy Cook, Budget Director. I'm here today to present the preliminary budget workshop for the Amenity Authority Committee for the RAD Recreation Amenity Division Fund. So first, I want to go over the budget structure. So as you know, Village Center Community Development District is the legal entity and parent board, and the Amenity Authority Committee makes the recommendations to the Village Center Board for any approvals of the funding from the Recreation Amenity Division Fund, which include amenities north of County Road 466. The RAD Fund pays for the amenity services, which include the recreation centers, pools, golf courses, the gates and community watch services, any common area landscaping and maintenance, administrative services, public safety, and debt service and reserves. And currently, your amenity fees fund 91% of your overall revenues. In looking at the 23-24 actuals, we did bring in $48.8 million. The 24-25 budget included $50 million for the amenity fees, and we are projecting to be at $51 million at the end of this fiscal year due to the CPI adjustments, which is approximately 1% above the budget. For 25-26, we're projecting to be at $52 million of amenity fee revenue. This is for your capital expenditures, and we do have more details further in the presentation, but just to go over, we have golf course renovations, bunker replenishments, roof replacements to the rec centers and the gatehouses, HVAC system replacements, pool renovations, parking lot mill and overlay, sound system replacements, and fence extensions. So next I want to review your amenity fee rates. We did review this information previously, but I just extended it to the 15 years for you. And in looking at the current fiscal year, as we saw before, where most of our payers are between $190 and $199. And as we look into the future, it'll be between $240 and $249 for the majority of your residents. Next is to look at the 15-year projection as we've expanded this beyond the 10 years to show the final debt service payment and where the fund sits following that. So we do have the first 10 years, which included the Paradise renovation, the La Hacienda renovation, and then in year 33, 34, the dip is due to the debt service amortization schedule where it does go down and then goes back up to the annual amount. Once we pass the final debt service payment in 36, 37, you do see that your expenditures do drop below your revenues at that point, and your fund balance does begin to grow.
You have a laser to point
Don't.
that what you just said.
Oh, yeah, I do. So right here is the end of the debt service payment right there. And then so following that, you'll see that the expenditures, which is the line with the circles on it, or the light blue line, does include the reduction from that debt service, so that you are below the revenues projections at that point.
Do you know the big reason why we did 33 through 37 in our fund balance? Can you speak up, Brett?
So the reason that that is because your expenditures are exceeding your revenues, and so those are reducing your fund balance because you're utilizing them.
Okay, and so what I guess I'm trying to say is, do we know what is causing such a large amount in that time period there?
So that's just based on the projections that we have included the 4% for the operating expenditures going out into the future. And with that growth and the $11 million in your debt service, which you can see that short of where that dip is, the line does kind of, it's flat. It's just because of the debt service payment back here that's lower.
I think what he's getting at is what is causing the balance to go down. So that would be the capital improvement plan. What on the capital improvement plan is causing those expenditures? Is that where you're going?
Right, I understand. I see the dip there, you know, and I see the expenditures going up, but we jumped $10 million basically from 33, 34 time period, and then we run about $10 million higher than everything that was sort of creeping along with what looked like me, what you're probably using as general inflationary kind of figures, projection. And all of a sudden, the general inflationary figures all of a sudden say, we're going up another $10 million here. Now we're going to follow a general inflationary figure until you get the debt service paid off. Now we're dropping at that point. I'm just wondering what caused a big bump like that. I mean, I can understand the little spikes, like the spike for Paradise. Obviously, we got the La Hacienda in there. I know we got Savannah in there in about 3 years. But it's like we also hit a $10 million increase for about a 3-year period. And, you know, we don't look out that far in the capital improvement plan. So I'm just curious what was thrown in there to say you're going up another $10 million.
Right. Following the end of where we look at the capital improvement plan, we've actually only included $5 million flat. So this is all due to the inflationary percentage, and you can see starting back here that that line is fairly flat. It's only dipping here because of the debt service reduction from 11 million to 6. So it's actually, it would have been a flat line if you still had an $11 million payment here. And it's just because it's exceeding your revenues, and so that is compounded over those fiscal years. So in this year, you see it's about a $3 to $4 million disparity between those, and then that increases each fiscal year. So that is the culmination of being above that revenue line.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, looking at the fiscal year 2036-37, that is the point at which our final debt bond payment has been made. We have no bond after that, totally finished. That payment amount for that last payment, how much is it?
Hold on, I will pull up the packet.
Can you hear me on that?
So your final debt payment is about $11.6 million in that fiscal year 36-37.
I thought it was about 12.2 million.
Well, from what my data shows, it's 11.6. I don't know which.
I'm looking at the debt amortization schedule and payoff and so on. It looked to me like the final payment was 12.2.
Well, if you're looking at the amortization, I just want to caution you from looking at the annual column because that's on a calendar year, whereas the debt is paid on the fiscal year. So part of that payment might have been in a different fiscal year. I'm not looking at it for you, I'm just looking at the information.
Then following that, the year 2037-38 through 2039-40, if our bond payment was 11 million or so, we had no interest, no principal, no dollars going out whatsoever for a bond payment after the 11, that payment is made in November of 2036, which is the end or the beginning of a new fiscal year.
That's correct.
But the orange line up there, and we don't have actual numbers on that, but each year that you're showing, what is the increase between the bottom of that orange line for 36, 37, and the next mark for 37, 38? How many dollars does that represent?
It's approximately $5 million.
Why does it only represent 5 million when our payments are 11 to 12 million on that bond debt? Wouldn't we have 11 to 12 million suddenly not going out as an expenditure?
You do, however, you've been funding about $5 million of your fund balance to balance your budget. So it's first the $5 million to get you back to the revenue line, and then the other $5 million to get you to where that year-over-year is.
So you're no longer using your savings account or your fund balance to fund your expenses because your revenues are then going to be higher than your expenses. So you can start growing that savings account or fund balance again.
Adequate. But that's all right. That's what I better. That's okay. So where's the rest of that 6 million going?
So previously, when you were making your bond payment, in order to do that and fund your expenses, you were pulling about $6 million out of your fund balance every year, which is why it's going down. Now, you're not pulling that $6 million out, you're using your revenues, so that $6 million is going to stay. And in addition, you're going to grow it in about $6 million.
Where's that growth shown?
It's the fund balance going up. Yes.
But we just said that we're going to have 11 million that we're not paying out as an expenditure anymore. But the fund balance only shows a $5 million increase. Where does this graph show the other 6 million?
It shows it in your revenue, and your expenditures are now underneath your revenues. So if your fund balance would have been straight, you would have seen that 12 million up, but it wasn't, it was going down. So you're seeing it go up and grow 6 million. In addition, 6 million is being spent up in your expenditures instead of pulling it out of your fund balance.
You're no longer utilizing your reserves to balance your budget each fiscal year, and you're recapturing additional that $11 million was.
Look at the
You said the expenditure.
Look at the blue and the black lines.
Yes.
That's where it is.
Okay. I don't see a $6 million increase in those two lines. And one of them is a revenue, and I would expect the revenue line would show a significant increase.
You wouldn't be earning any additional revenue, you're just no longer using all of that revenue to pay your expenses every fiscal year, and an additional $6 million in your reserves.
There's a $10 million gap there, right? You go from 60 to 70. Look where that black line is. That, I mean, is it exact? I don't know that there's really 6 million there, but
Yeah, it's all based
could
on
be.
That's correct.
But the fund balance is a reserve kind of thing. The fund balance includes reserves, correct? The
Yes.
fund includes our reserves.
Correct, yes, correct.
If there's no significant change in our revenue from amenity fees and no significant change in our expenditure, I would expect the fund balance to increase and show an increase of about $11 million.
And if your expenditures were meeting that, the black line with the squares on it, then you would have had an increase of that debt service payment into your fund balance. But because it was above, you first have to make up that over budget or over revenue expenditure part, and then you can recapture any of that additional that's down below. So you're only going to grow by what the difference of your revenue and expenditures are.
Randy, would it be easier with, rather than showing a chart, would it be easier if we put it that chart
Jennifer,
with the
can you pull up
numbers
the packet instead?
rather than looking at
It's
dots
the
on
very
the line
bottom.
here?
Oh, sorry.
Because that's plotted on that graph, correct?
What page is that?
The very first page in the packet. I'm not sure.
And that's what you plotted, correct?
I can't read that screen here. Probably the audience cannot either. So I'd like to be able to see it.
It's in your packet. It's not part of the PowerPoint presentation. It's the first page in your budget packet.
Page 69. Page 69.
That's what I was trying to look at.
When you looked at the projection for the revenue from the graph from the magazine, did you use just like a percent average? Because it said each year, what I noticed is we budget this, we seem, that's fine, it's being conservative. We seem to, in the end, end up with a little bit more than what we budgeted, the planned budget.
Yes, actually on the bottom.
So you use like a.
On the bottom of that page, we do have the assumptions that we utilized. So we did use a 2.5% annual increase.
Okay.
Yes.
We did not. Okay, thanks.
You're fine. It's fine print.
Okay, I've got page 69 here. If it had been helpful, if it had been right next to this, in the spreadsheet, instead of having to find it elsewhere. All right, now, where do you want me to look?
So in that bottom section, those are the last 4 years that you were just commenting on. So
Yeah.
36, 37 starts the year with 31 million. We have deposits of 65, and then our outflows are 54 million, 11 million for the debt service, and 5 million for the capital projects, which gives you 25 million based on the math. As you go to 37, 38, we no longer have the debt service payment, so you start that fiscal year with the 25 million that you ended the previous fiscal year with. You earned revenues of 66 million. You have the 56 million of outflows for operating and the 5 million for capital, which gives you the $30 million, which is the $5 million increase to your fund balance.
I'm not seeing 5 million, I'm not seeing 11 million.
That's correct, because the 11 million is no longer in there. So instead, in 36, 37, you reduced your fund balance 5 million. This year, you increased it 5 million, and that's where you get your difference, or 6 million.
If you were not reducing your fund balance the previous year, it would grow the 11 million. But you went down 5 million, so now half of it is to get back to the base, and then the other 5 million, that's where you're getting that total of approximately 11 million.
And you're saying that that's the same pattern for the other 2 years, 38, 39, and 39, 40?
Correct.
Yes. Because you were dipping into your fund balance to pay for your bills. You were decreasing it. Now, not only are you not decreasing it, but you're growing it $5 million.
Your total revenue.
I'm comparing year over year. There should be an $11 million
There is. You were going down 5, and now you're going up 5. So -5 to +5 is that $10 million.
Maybe if you look at it this way and tell me, if you look at the beginning balance of each of the years, look at what's happening. It's going down by $5 million every year, right?
Right.
Okay? So now when you get to 37, 38, 39, look at it's growing.
So I'm just gonna add in, because are you saying the revenue has to be 60 million or 65 million? Is that what we're saying, we have to have that much? Because if you just increase the 11 million like he's asking, you would see that, that would be growing over time, I guess, but, does it have to be 60 million? Do we have to replace that 5 million that we lost, is my question, it's not really lost, it didn't go anywhere. You're saying you gotta bring it back up to the black line.
No, what I was saying is if you were at the black line, then you would see the capture of the full 11 million.
Understand.
Your
Why do I
revenues.
have to be at the black line? Why wouldn't the new line start where the blue line is and it just keep increasing from that point?
The black line is your revenue, and the light blue line is your expenditures based on that assumptions that we've included, which is a 2.5% increase to your revenues to your amenity fees, which represent over 90%.
I'm fine with that, the whole level.
And so that's where the 60 million comes, 66 million comes from.
I got it.
Okay.
And Mr. Williamson, did you have questions?
I kind of answered one of them because I did have a question. Why is our debt service on fiscal year 33, 34, 6 million, 11 million?
And that is just based on the amortization schedule. There was a couple of years that you had based on that schedule where it was dipping and then going back up. It is all based on the amortization schedule that was sent out.
I just tried to understand so that payment right there.
It was just based on the bond structure.
Yeah, I mean, this is only our initial workshop, so I mean, it would probably be easier rather than trying to interpret it through this graph. Take a look and study the sheet that we just talked about on page 69, and then we can always come back and ask more questions once you analyze that a little bit rather than
that would be helpful.
rather than trying to hash through it now. Let's just you'll know there will be more questions, and we'll just continue that at another time. Okay? We're not making any decisions about anything today.
I have another quick question. This is kind of not off topic, but a little bit sideways. In that, can you pay a bond off early because it's going to be emergency?
You can if it's in the. We have to check the bond to make sure of what you can pay off and at what time. But we could absolutely look into that. But you would have to pay it off. And at this moment, do not have enough in reserve because that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Well, I just think about that 6 million versus 11. Just curious if that's going to save money or not. Perhaps that's something.
Yeah, you would save on the interest income if you were to pay it off early. But again, it would all be.
You have to look at the bond covenant.
Yes, you have to look at the bond.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so everybody's going to continue for now, and we'll just come back to this at a later date.
And so then this is just a slide to look at what that 15-year reserve would do between the two different fund reserves, which is your working capital and your general R&R. Of course, we are continuing to transfer to the general R&R based on the request to keep it above 14 million. And you'll see that in that 36-37 year, you are low, and in 37-38 for those additional 5 years that we've added. 37-38 is starting to grow back because we have now recaptured from spending that debt service payment. And then as we continue out, we can continue to grow that working capital balance while keeping your reserves at the $14 million. One thing that we had also discussed was the deferral rate, and so we have included it. That was set to the prevailing rate with that extended 15 years, and it does relatively the same thing. However, your expenditures do meet your revenues much quicker in that 15th year based on our projections, just due to the reduced revenue that you would be receiving. It's not a significant amount, but you would get there much quicker.
Okay. You're making assumptions, which you have to do in order to make the projection. And you would tell us what the assumptions are based on.
So we always review historical data and looking to the future as well as looking out in the market. So we're looking at about a 2.5% increase to the CPI for each fiscal year. And we have a 4% increase to the expenditures based on what historically we've seen for that inflationary measure, as well as some of the contract waivers that you have in place. And then the further out we go, we of course don't know what's going to happen, so we utilize those as a flat assumption for that 15-year window.
This one says prevailing rate. Are you talking about the prevailing rate that we have currently, or are you adjusting that prevailing rate each year?
This is also adjusting your prevailing rate by that same 2.5% each fiscal year to keep up with all of your pays who are currently close to it. So they would, some who are already above would see a freeze on theirs until they met it. Some who are close to it would only reach it and then they wouldn't go past it, and then anyone below would just continue to rise until they reach that. But as we saw from this graph, we have a significant number of our residents who are at or below the prevailing rate right now at the 199. So that's where the assumption is.
And that historical basis that you looked at, what years does that cover?
As far as how many years we went back?
Yes.
So we do look back several years. We do take caution when we're looking at the COVID year rates, because there was some significant adjustments that we all had to take in those years. So we do take caution when looking at those. We've also included that on the average, your fund only spends about 96 of its budgeted expenditures. So we have actually reduced the expenditures to that 96 rate based on that historical low.
And the average on that historical low was what?
The average was 96% of your budgeted expenditures.
Percentage?
Yes.
But the CPI average was?
So the CPI, what we're using for that is based on some metrics that we have based on projections that we've received from other professionals out there in the field. And we're talking about between 2 and 3% right now is what we're looking at in the future. So that's why we've included a 2.5 met million.
And the expenses?
The expenses, we see that your expenses based on your contracts, a lot of them have that 5% built in, or they have a 3%, so we utilize the 4%. And then whenever we have contract expirations, we tend to see between 8 and 10% increases to those rates.
Okay. I would like to address that aspect at some point in this workshop today about the 5% built into a contract. I want to talk about the history of that, and I have some serious questions about why we're doing that. And I think it's going to be important to our own budget setting going forward. So,
Madam Chair, Mr. Deacon, purchasing is not here. It's typically, they don't play a huge role in the budget workshop process. So if you're agreeable, I would prefer to wait until your next meeting so that she can be prepared to speak on that.
Please.
So we'll add it to the agenda.
We'll discuss it in April.
but it really does impact our discussion and decisions.
This is a preliminary workshop. We're not making any decisions today. It's just, I mean, there's time for us to take that into account.
Can we include that on the April agenda?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, continue.
And so once again, we're looking at the prevailing rate with that, and we see that although we're still growing it, it is a little bit lower in that reserve balance compared to not setting a deferral rate. However, as we can see at 34-35, we are below that target balance of the 4 months, as well as 36-37 and 37-38. So those are the same on, regardless if you set one or not, that you would not be meeting that minimum 4 months to make sure that you're covering all of the expenses for that.
You have a footnote at the bottom there.
That's correct.
And the footnote says the deferral rate above should lead to total deferred revenues of $323,847 for the 15 15-year period. And that's with the prevailing rate, this is a 15-year. So that is the total loss if we have the deferral rate at the prevailing rate.
That's correct.
After 15 years.
It's a very minimal impact because most of your residents would be growing with the prevailing rate. So if we set the deferral at the prevailing, if the prevailing rate goes up, so does the resident, so there's really no loss of revenue. So it would only be for those communities who are still above it and are frozen until they meet it, and then they start growing with it as well.
So if we set the deferral rate at the prevailing rate, the deferral is going to go up with the CPI each year. It's not, so we're not looking at it staying at its current level. We're saying we're just going to grow it at whatever the developer sets it at.
Correct.
From one year to the next.
That is correct, and we utilize that same 2.5% CPI in that to do those projections.
Yeah, we're not saying deferred, it's going to deferral at 199. We're saying deferral at the prevailing rate on any given year, right? And that goes up by the CPI annually. The developer makes that adjustment.
Correct, so it's at 199 now, so if next year it's set to 205, anyone who's above 205 would not get an increase, anyone below would only increase up to 205.
So there's a significant difference between setting it at 199 permanently for year to year to year, as opposed to setting it at whatever the developer then sets it at.
That's correct, and as we said before, if you had resales for any homeowners, if the prevailing rate was above the deferral, then they would still be at that new prevailing rate. They would not just go to the new deferral.
I understand that part. But there's nothing that requires the developer to follow the CPI. That's what he's been doing lately. But he could set it at any level, at any time, up or down.
Contractually required to just up it, no?
There were many years where there was no amenity prevailing rate change.
Yes.
So it is the only thing that is in the declaration statement is set by the developer. But we made the assumption that it would be based on CPI.
Okay, that's an important distinction. Okay, thank you.
Of course. So next, there was a request to include the debt service ratio. So we have included the total of revenues from that worksheet compared to the total expenses for your operations. And the coverage, as you can see right now, is going to be at 3.59 for 25-26 with the assumptions we've included. And as we go out through the fiscal years, in 35-36, you do actually project to fall below the 1.25 requirement for your debt coverage. And then in 36-37, you fall below it again, but that would be the last year that would be paid. So we would have to look at your expenses to identify where those adjustments would need to be made should we actually be at that level based on the 4% assumptions we've included.
Okay, so in 35-36, as this stands now, if we wanted to issue a bond for something, we could not do it. That's what you're saying. Because our debt coverage required it is too low.
No, it's that you're not going to meet the debt covenant for this bond that you have in place.
This is for the bonds that have already been issued. The bond covenants state that we must maintain a certain debt coverage requirement, and based on the assumptions, we're not going to meet what is required of our bond covenants for those last 2 years.
Won't they be paid off? No, 37 is when they're paid off. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which is why we stopped it at 37 and it's a contingency list.
I got it.
Do these assumptions include the deferral rate at the prevailing rate?
They do not. These are assumptions based on if there was no deferral rate in place.
Okay, so these would change quite a bit.
Correct. We would probably see it in a couple of years before, at least 34, 35 is how close it is. with the loss of that $400,000 revenue.
So I mean, what that does is it brings up an interesting question to maybe for future workshops is to look and see what is the allowability to pay off early. Because if you thought you could work something that allowed you to pay it off early, maybe you could pay it off before you see your debt service ratio drop over 2.5.
And again, we are looking at a significant number of years, and so our assumptions may or may not be correct. If we have a large CPI increase here, then you're going to see higher revenues. If our expenses start to come in at a better rate from those adjustments for the contracts, then you're going to have lower expenses. So those are the tweaks that would happen as we continue out in the years. It is 11 and 12 years out, so it is a significant number of years. But we just wanted to caution you that with the assumptions that we're utilizing, we're projecting we would not meet that in the last 2 years.
I perfectly understand, and I believe based on what we've seen, at least my being on the committee here for the last 2 years, revenue tends to end up being a little bit higher than what we said, and what we talked about as far as the conservative number there, and then expenses seem to be a little bit lower, good contracts that we've set up and things like that too. So I think we tend to see that we're being conservative here, so the number might be different, but it might be just worth seeing if there's a path that you could look at that possibly. Maybe not.
We can review that, the bond covenants, to see at what point you would be allowed to pay that off, and then Brandy can look at the projections to see if you have the funds to do so. We can add that to our business on the next meeting.
And another thing we might look at is to say, since we looked at about a $5 million capital improvement, so a flat line going forward, which is interesting. We got the other things adjusting by, some percentage, 2.5, 4%, or whatnot, in the historical change. That, we've had those spike bumps in there every once in a while. I got to believe we're going to be looking at some other rec centers in the future that we might have to do. So it might be that we look at something that has that just a little bit different too, or another version 3 or version 4. Okay, if we look at some other things in the out years that you might have to look at when it comes to some of your rec centers and things like that to do, then you might see these things in there too, and that might change your overall bottom line picture looking out at the other.
And it would change your bottom line picture, but for the calculation of the debt coverage, it takes your revenues compared to your operating expenditure. So it doesn't consider the debt payment and capital when looking at that.
That just
the availability
gets our bottom line total.
Yes.
And every time we've discussed deferral, we've also talked about reevaluating it every couple of years.
Right, which is
just
one
because we say things we're not, committing to 15 years out. Right?
And we can continue to evaluate this each fiscal year during the budget process to see where we're at with the assumptions.
Thank you. Of course.
Excuse me. Rather than talk about the early payment as I did, my thoughts were early, enlarging the payment, not necessarily paying the whole debt off. Like let's say I had $11.6 million on debt, a payment, what if we bumped by $1 million or $1.5 million each time? Would that save us any interest rate? Or can you do that with bond? I don't know.
That's unfortunately not something we pay that based on the principal payment once a year and the interest payment twice a year, just based on what that average is.
Well, I'm just familiar, so I want to ask.
It's not like paying mortgage debt early.
No, right, that's what I'm asking. So I'm not familiar with bonds. I don't know bonds. Okay, London.
You're looking at the payoff amortization schedule. We're paying $4 to $5 million of interest each year on this debt. And I had asked you previously, I know from previous experience that we have been able to refinance the bond at certain period of time, usually 10-year interval. We are at the 10-year interval now. And we don't have enough to totally pay it off, but we can certainly pay it off significantly if we chose. You were going to look and find out whether we can do that with this bond and what the date would be and so forth. Did you do that?
We're still looking through that because it has only been a short period So we just haven't had the opportunity to finalize any of that information, bring it back to you, but we'll be bringing that back in a future meeting.
Can we put that on the April agenda?
If we were going to bring it back during the May presentation.
What?
We were going to bring it back during your May budget presentation.
The May budget.
I heard that. Then in June, we have to provide our proposed actual budget. And then we finalize it in September. Okay. I think it's something that we certainly need to know well in advance so that we can give that due consideration along with the deferment rate cap.
Yes, and so we're working through not only the ability and the date, but also the feasibility because of the rates that are currently in the market. So we want to make sure to provide you good information so that you'll be able to make direction and decisions.
Finding the date, is that readily available?
It's not just the date that we're looking for. We want to make sure that it's not only when, but feasible for you based on the market rates. If you refinance, is it a feasible refinance? We don't want something to be more expensive for you in that period.
Well, I understand that we don't necessarily have to go with a bond either. We could go with a bank loan instead of a bond if we wanted to. We've already done that before once.
Those are the things that we're looking at so that we can provide recommendations.
Yes. There's a significant cost to refinance a bond to another bond, but there's a big savings and a minimal cost refinancing a bond to a bank loan.
These are also different types of bonds than what you have.
I understand. Right.
Do you know what the interest rate is on the bond right now?
We know that it's a variable. It was on that presentation. Hold on one second. It's between 3.088 and 5.015, so it does change on the amortization schedule. You'll see each fiscal year it has a stated interest rate for that fiscal year.
I don't know if you're going to find anything, but okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Boyle might have something to add as well.
I just want to thank the police station for their hard work. Our goal here obviously is to reduce or keep the land use as low as possible for residents, and we rely heavily on your input and your help to try to achieve that. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Sean Boyle, CFO. So
Oh,
I just
I see.
wanted to shed a little bit of light. Might not click that, okay. These mics are real sensitive. So I just want to shed a little light on the bond. So what you're asking is a good question as far as whether you can refinance these bonds or pay them off. Keep in mind, these bonds are issued in multiple denominations, so they're not. It's not like a mortgage in the sense that there's one bondholder and you can negotiate with them. And the other piece is when it comes to the terms of the bond, what we're looking for is the call options in the bonds. Without call options, you've made a promise and a commitment, and the bondholders rely on those payment streams when they make the investment. So, and thirdly, there are a couple, we go into a defeasement of a bond, but again, as Brandon was pointing out, it really depends on the prevailing market rates versus what are the coupon rates within the bond to make sure that it makes economic sense. And those are all the analyses that we'll run through, and we can certainly provide you with that information. But the very first thing we have to look at in the bond document, which are the terms of the bonds, are the call options. And if they're not there, the likelihood of doing anything with these bonds is greatly diminished. So,
Right, I understand. But thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Okay, thank you.
And now we will move into the department presentations and some of the things that you can expect to see with Community Watch, Executive Golf, Recreational Parks and Property Management.
Yes, okay.
Patsy O'Byrne, 1524 Cervantes Place. I just have a question on the projections. How do you account for home sales that go back to the birth date of the home, where especially for this population, a lot of the homes would be the more lower amenity fee homes, and I can have this wrong, I apologize. They are the ones that are selling, turning over more rapidly. Would that not then affect the income from the amenity fee as those homes sell? I know that I've seen charts previously in other presentations where they've shown the number of homes and the amount of the amenity fees. It's just something that I thought about. I don't need an answer, it's just something for you all to consider.
That is all taken into consideration. We use previous home sale historicals and then make those assumptions that they will either come up or down based on the prevailing change.
And I think it's, I don't know exactly where I read it in this packet, but there is those projections are in this packet.
Good morning to the board, Nehemiah Wolf, Community Watch.
Good morning.
Community Watch Department is responsible for being and keeping a watchful eye for our village residents and providing a safe environment for over 150,000 residents. We do that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are a very important component in supporting every resident through our 4 disciplines, a 24-hour communications center, our patrol division, our gate attendants for our staff gates, and then our gate out for our camera monitors. We do that using those 4 disciplines. In addition to that, we support many district departments, everyone from customer service, utilities, DPM, recreation, as well as our law enforcement partners. We're supporting 7 different local law enforcement agencies that has jurisdictions within the villages. In addition to that, there's also 2 state agencies that we interact and that we work with. Some of the highlights from 24-25, there were 19 occasions where, through our effective patrolling, Community Watch was able to assist and save lives. There was a $1.9 million 5-year cost savings that we enacted. When we looked at our traffic count for 24-25, annually it came up to more than 98 million vehicles that were transitioning in and out of our community. When we looked at our call center, there's more than 465,000 calls that were serviced by our 24-hour communications center. When it comes to our community engagement opportunities, there was at least 2,200 times plus that we removed signs from district-owned property. There was 28 different cases we assisted our law enforcement partners in when it came to missing or lost persons. There was over 1,000 engagements very easily with our residents, with our National Night Out, with our Government Day participation, our Hurricane Expos. There was 41 different times residents requested Community Watch to attend a monthly meeting and provide overviews for the residents. And we were happy to do that. Our historical data, we are growing, and so are our calls for service and the things that we do at Community Watch. We had a 22.9% increase in total calls. When we look at specific programs like our Adult Watch program, we had more than 6% increase. When we look at our well-being checks, these are the checks that are typically known as the 2 newspapers in the driveway. The percentage in the last year was 167% increase. And we feel the increase is because of the effective patrolling methodology that we enacted in 22-23. 23-24 provided our first full year, 12 months of data. So it helped us reflect 167% increase to get account of that. Our open garage doors at night also increased more than 32%. Our house check program participation from our residents, we show an increase of more than 58% in that. The $1.9 million savings over a 5-year period.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Some of these you do at no fee, some of them there is a fee attached, is that correct?
That is correct. The one that we charge for is the house check program, and I believe that rate is $6, currently $6.42 per week. That is the only program that there is a fee that's attached to.
And that revenue, does that go back into your discretionary funds to be used, or where does it go?
Actually, I believe it goes to general fund. General fund.
It goes in, it comes in as a revenue, it does not go back into his budget.
Correct.
And as revenue to who?
To you.
And do we have a line item on that?
Yes.
Yes.
So question, these are historical calls throughout the entire villages. Is there any reason to believe that these percentages are about the same for below and above 466?
It's hard to determine that based on the software that we have or that we've had. I am happy to say that going forward, the technology opportunity that we'll talk about in just a moment has increased.
It's been around a long time. What's your gut reaction?
I think it's it's about the same, north and south. Yes. That's just good.
I have a quick review based on the north and south portion. All the things you cited here, is that I'm assuming it's the entire.
Right now, it currently represents the entire village. Yes, sir.
How do we reconcile, these figures with, as you kind of indicated, the north and north side? So I don't have to reconcile that.
Going forward, I would say going forward, we're going to have that opportunity based on the system that we just recently started. We have a CAD system that will help us better track those calls for services and all of the things that we do. We will actually be able to break things down by actual district. So I think with that said, the technology and the system.
So keep in mind though that the budget for Community Watch and revenues for Community Watch, they are part of an allocation system. So it's not actual expenses south of 466 or north of 466. Their entire budget is allocated to the RAD fund, the SLAD fund, and the developer based on the number of rooftops. So it's your percentage continues to go down as we grow because more rooftops are being built south. So it's not, there's a Community Watch budget of actual expenditures north and south. It is their entire budget is allocated.
So the house checks, is that an allocation as well?
Yes.
The revenue that comes in?
So as we grow as the villages, our percentage of responsibility is less.
Can you speak
Correct.
to your mic?
You are correct. As the villages grows, your percentage of responsibility goes down, and the developers goes up. And then if there's another amenity sale, then some drainage just went up, and that goes for revenues as well.
But it's also based on the fact that as the community grows, just like using the consensus numbers, what I did a quick math was grown by 54%. So obviously, everything has to help cover those additional home rooftops and whatnot. So all that's going to grow, which obviously shows, like Nehemiah, your numbers here, because you got a lot of coverage you got to take care of. So you need more people to make that more coverage. So the balance is everything's going up up in cost because you had more rooftops, so that you got to cover for things like community watch or other things, but then also now that's spread across the whole community.
That's
so
right.
that is there.
Yeah, the budget will go up because we have more areas to cover, we have more gates, we have more facilities to manage, more areas to control. So the budget will go up, but your proportionate share will go down. So you won't see an increase in your responsibilities when it pertains to growth. If your increase is because of an additional level of service, which is what we've talked about over the last couple of years. In addition, we do have, this is the last year of the minimum wage increase, so you will see in the departments with a lot of part-time staff specifically, a big increase in the minimum wage.
Well, we do have a number, right? Because I thought when you asked the number, and the number was somewhere around 3.4 million for North.
Yes, you will have a number of what it costs you, but I just want to make sure that you understand it's not, we don't divide Community Watch's budget and say, this is a line, we spent this much up here and spent this much down there. It's based on the entire budget and allocation, and yes, you will have a hard number at the end of it. This one.
I don't know if this is a good time to bring this up, but I heard something very interesting that came up at the POA meeting, and I think it's something we should maybe take a look at. Rather than having manned gates, because anybody can enter or exit the community, so why don't we just have a stop at the gate like we do going out, have it coming in? Now we don't need manned gates there. And you'd still be able to really, the whole purpose, from my understanding, the purpose of those gates is just to control traffic and watch who's coming and going. You could do the same thing without having anybody there. And that would really significantly, well, I don't know how much it would reduce the community watch budget, but you would need staff to do that. I thought it was a very interesting concept.
I think that some areas are going to require, of course, especially when you're roundabouts, because of the congestion issue and the safety protocol, and to have a man basically control that gate to allow traffic to go off when the cars are coming in. You know what I mean? That's the only place I see, but I agree with you. It's not really a gate.
And specifically, maybe on Morse at 466, maybe that should remain manned, but I'm in Lundberg, I don't know that we need a manned gate there.
Yeah. Well, I agree. The Shea Gate doesn't, some other things that we need.
That's great. I wish we would talk about more about that, manning those gates. I went to, I was in this plantation neighborhood once, and, there's a person at the gate, the second person at the gate got a little car, Prius, and drove around, and he was the community watch while he wasn't manning the gate. So, when I look at Morris, there's two people, one of them's talking to the other person just sitting in a chair. That person could have been in a car, a little Prius car, not a big truck, driving around in the community watch, instead of sitting there being the communication device for the person talking on the phone and waving you like this. I'm just saying.
And I know Dean and I mean, we had asked you before to look for efficiencies, and maybe that's one that we can look at. I'm throwing it out there. I thought it was an interesting concept.
I tend to agree with what each of you have said. I'd like to hear from Reb. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say, and first I want to say, Nima, appreciate you pointed there 1.9 million that you've looked and say over a 5-year period as you look at the gates there. And I think that we've always had a discussion where continue to look at innovative ways of how we can continue to save even another 1.9 million over another 5-year period or whatnot. So I think some of the ideas related to that are of the manning the gate. We talked about you went through this standard, 6 a.m. to midnight kind of thing. Is that working well or not working well? Should we even modify some so that maybe it's not standard across the board? Some get it done. I was going to ask a question like, we say that there's an unmanned gate going in from Saddlebar at the light there. How's that with the control traffic? And if that seems to be going okay over all these years, even though you got a hiccup every once in a while in a heavy flow period, then can some other gates be looking at going to unmanned for the same reason that one's unmanned, and there's a lot of traffic that goes through there too. So I would tend to think that areas where we can look at manned versus unmanned and other savings related to personnel, since we are still seeing another 1 year increase in the minimum wage, it's going to have a big impact across the board. And also look at other innovative ways when it relates to patrolling. Are there different hour setups for that? Those are the kind of things I'd say, if you're looking at all that, we appreciate you do, and we can bring it back within our workshops to see what we see there.
Those are excellent points, and from all of you. And I do want to thank you for your idea, which we did approve, to change the gate hours and so forth. I think that was a good suggestion from you to save us money, and I want to express my appreciation to you for that.
Thank you, sir. Community Watch, we continuously look for opportunities or ways that we can improve service. We continually look for ways that we can improve not only our service but efficiencies. We continue to look for opportunities where we can actually provide cost savings. So that is something that we just don't do once a year. We're continuously looking at our entire operation of Community Watch to see where there are opportunities.
And we can certainly, we'll look at that information and bring it back to you. I will just say, we get a lot of calls from residents wanting to know why they don't have a staff gate. I've never received a call that says, why do we have somebody at this gate? It's always, why don't I have the staff gate? What was the determination? What did you decide to do this? And we explained it was all part of the development of the community. Certainly, I think it's a great exercise for us to go through, but generally speaking, eliminating that personal touch, that individual is, I think you would really want to make sure that that's what residents want before you did that. But we'll certainly go through and provide all of that information.
It might be interesting to know how many man gates there are in our jurisdiction versus the rest of the area.
We can compare
what the cost would be, and getting POA AAC agree as well. I mean, they want to be consistent throughout the villages anyway.
I was curious about this heavy gate stipend. What is that?
That was eliminated. That was one of the things that was one of the things that was eliminated in that 1.9 cost savings. There was a point in time when there was a night differential for staff that was working overnight. The other part of that was where we had heavy volume. Heavy volume, for example, the Morris South that you shared, there's two people. There's two people there because of the volume of traffic. When we just done our recent traffic count, January 31st of this year, there was more than 15,000 vehicles that transitioned at South Morris Gate. And there are certain times of the day, based on that count, that we see when the heaviest volume is. So we double staffed that. There was an additional compensation that was provided because it was hard to get people to staff, to actually staff that. So it was an incentive, heavy gate stipend, an incentive to try and get people to go ahead and take on that shift. But that was eliminated as part of that 1.9 million.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I keep thinking those people are going to get carpal tunnel, waiting through it.
That gate is very, very unique. When it comes to the queue, it looks like it's a long queue from the gatehouse to 466, but when that light changes, it does not take long for traffic to back up into 466.
Oh, I agree.
If that gate attendant wasn't there. In addition to that, when it comes to emergency vehicles having to get through, it's essential that that person's in place so we can get those lanes of traffic clear. Yes. The other part of that 1.9 million savings was the analysis that we've done on our human capital. We value our human capital at Community Watch, and we were able to keep 67% of those staff members that were displaced as a result of eliminating the midnight to 0600 shift. In addition to that, 4% went to other departments and 29% chose to leave the villages by retirement or what have you. Fiscal responsibility and technology initiative. We are very excited about a new cloud-based computer-aided dispatch system. It's called Orna. We started that on March 1st of this year. This is part of that technology that's going to assist us in so many different ways when it comes to our documentation of what's going on within our district and our patrol zones. Like I said, it's going to be able to break down call for service within a certain district. That's going to be very, very helpful and instrumental. But the CAD system, it will assist the dispatchers in assisting in identifying whichever resource is closest to the call for service when needed. $160,000 was allocated in 2025 for that system. The implementation of that system cost us $30,000. Future technology plans is to build field tablets for the patrol drivers, therefore eliminating the use of paper and ink. It will provide us an opportunity to reduce our radio traffic through digital reporting, and it will streamline our process and improve efficiency going forward. Very excited about that. The fiscal year, the breakdown of that budget, staffing, and the way that works, we adopted a methodology in 22-23 that helps us maintain standards for every residence, whether it's from the historical side, 462, 441, or Highway 42, all the way down to the new area. According to that methodology, every 4,000 homes creates a zone for us. Every time we create 7 zones, it creates a region. And that growth is determined by the number of rooftops. Currently, we are estimating 2,250 homes within the next year. I want to read this, I'm sorry. The Community Watch Department continues to move forward with strategic initiatives focused on improved communications, customer service, and transparency in decision making, and the complete creation and management of our budget process. We maintain at the forefront all of our district's core values. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, can I ask you, do you mind if I ask a question? You know, so 4,000 homes.
Yes.
How many people does it take to watch 4,000 homes? Is that one driver?
That's one driver.
One driver checks out 4,000 homes during a 6-hour shift, 8-hour shift?
8-hour shift.
During the 8-hour shift.
That's 16.2 homes per minute. 16.2.
How I like, you know, and I get excited about some stupid things. I got out of my house and I walked down to Airport, which is where I live, Air Drive. And in 1 minute, walking, I saw 14 homes. 14 homes in 1 minute, and I'm walking. You're saying 16.2, and you're driving 20 or 25 miles an hour from my neighborhood. I could walk that if I picked up my pace a little bit. That's 3 times. You should be doing 20. I can do 3 miles in an hour. This person could do a lot more than 16.2. I'm just saying, it sounds like a really low number. You may not think so, but 16.2, I can see 14 homes. I just get out of my house and I walk for 1 minute, 14 homes. Then I stop because I had to go back and count them. You know, I just don't understand that number at all.
Yes.
What else are they doing, Mr. Walker Patrol?
There's a huge difference. There was a point in time when Community Watch was tasked with just patrolling, and there was no guidance, there was no rhyme and no reason. What they are doing now is what I call quality patrolling. Quality patrolling allows that driver to observe. He is looking, he is listening, he is just not driving through a fast pace. And, you know, I know that I hear that a lot. Yeah, the drivers, they just zip through our neighborhoods, they're driving fast. We have technology that's attached to each and every one of those vehicles. It's called video. At any given time, I can look at data that's provided that tells me direction of travel, speed of travel of that vehicle. And I will tell you that there are a lot of times because people who are not trained in the speed detection area, the perception is that the vehicle is going a lot faster than what it actually is.
20 miles an hour for a neighborhood is pretty standard. And on cruise control, that vehicle wouldn't even use up any gas at 20 miles an hour driving through my neighborhood. They're hybrid cars.
They are hybrid. They are.
My car doesn't use one bit of gas at 20 miles an hour on cruise control.
They are hybrids, and they're not always on cruise control. What we have seen as a result of the technology that we use in patrolling the 16.2, we have more community engagement. Those 19 times that we talked about life saving, drivers have came across people that have been down in the driveway.
That would be unusual. 19 times in a year, right?
Well, yeah, it can go up at any given time.
I understand that would take time. But I wouldn't calculate that into my basic requirement that you're going to see 16.2 homes.
It's just an average.
Just an average.
It's just an average.
It's not an average. It's the amount of time that we're spending. They get in the car and they drive. When they come through my neighborhood, they're driving. No one else, they don't stop and say hello. Hey, Jim, how you doing? You know, I don't, there's none of that. They drive through my neighborhood, and I can walk 14 homes, and he's saying at 20 miles an hour, that person can see 16, and I'm sure if someone was in a life-threatening situation, you know, whatever, they fell down or whatever, that's pretty unusual, you should do that. And I know the last time we talked about, you gotta get out and check doors, some other things, you know. Really, your shop is overestimated the amount of time, in my mind, we're spending driving a vehicle and checking out home. 14 in 1 minute, I can see, and I can thoroughly see them. It's not like I don't see them. I can see if a garage door was open. I can see if there are 2 newspapers, and I can see if there's someone down walking. 14 1 minute. Just saying.
But you have to take into account, now if he sees those, he has to act on it.
That's something different. That's something different.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Take it into account when they come.
Holy cow! How many newspapers do you see? I'm just when you watch the radio.
On my street, I see them
All the time.
every 2 days.
Okay.
We have people don't pick up their papers. You know.
Too, something else to consider is that it's not oftentimes like you're walking, you're just walking at a people's house. That's a golf course, past rec center, so they don't have a house account. I'm sure this is an average, I'm sure it goes up and down, depending upon what newspapers, if you will. But I think about, you know, you drive by Paradise, you got a half a mile before you hit a house. So,
once you get there,
it took a couple of minutes to get through there. So
but once you get there, you can see a zillion homes and drive the entire neighborhood in probably an hour.
I understand your concern about the number.
No, I made my point. 16.2. He can defend that number from now to doomsday.
Right.
16.2 is not a good number.
I would prefer them have an average. I don't want them speeding through and then missing something. If somebody's laying in the garden or whatever, gardening or they have a stroke, and they're too fast, they got to get their 18 homes in. So I understand where you're coming from, but I think I'll let him defend it. I'm defending it.
Listen, he'll spend all the money you want to give him. Period.
And moving on, I think Mr. Brown is going to be presenting our executive golf course renovations.
Morning, Bruce Brown, Assistant District Manager. So we'll talk about executive golf, kind of summarize some of the stuff we have going on now, what we have approved for this fiscal year, and obviously we're going to talk about what we propose for your budget for next fiscal year. As you know, we have a new Director of Executive Golf Maintenance, Mr. Donald Jones, who's in the back of the room, but given he's been here for 3 weeks and is still getting his feet under his ground, so to speak, felt it would be slightly unfair to throw him up here to present this, but obviously if you have specific questions, he is certainly here available to address those if I don't cover them. So we've talked a lot about investment in executive golf courses, improving the quality of play for residents, improving the course conditions, and that's what we've done over the past several years. Standard has been 20-year renovation cycles, 25 years. We've changed that to 10 to 12 years. And to date, we've completed full renovations of 8 courses in the RAD area. 2 are scheduled for next fiscal year. And we have 1 scheduled for 26, 27, 1 for 27, 28, and 1 for 28, 29. That would complete, I believe, all of your RAD courses at that point for a full renovation. We went through a rough winter last year. We got a little beat up in executive golf. We took a lot of that feedback and we made a lot of improvements. One of those was to increase the frequency of the renovations I just talked about. Others was to do the district managed agronomy plan, the direct purchase of chemicals. So these are some snippets that we got off social media on some of the course improvements. Last fiscal year was the Chula Vista funded executive golf course renovation, which opened in January, I believe.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, sorry. It's a great course, beautiful. Hopefully, I believe all of you came to cut the ribbon on that. Amberwood will open on Monday, and hopefully we'll see you all there for that, 9:30 for the ribbon cutting. Done a lot of work on Amberwood. It is significantly improved from where it was before. This is a very, very good renovation, so you should be very pleased with it, as will all of the residents. As you know, we focused a lot on bunker sand replacement. We've put in place a capital plan to replace the bunker sand every 5 years in between renovations. When we do the bunker sand replacement, we inspect and repair the under drain system if it has it. Some of your courses up here do not have under drain systems in them. And we've also focused on the Audubon initiatives as well. So you'll see that when you see Amberwood, there's a new butterfly garden that's installed out there. For the current fiscal year, so these are the 2 renovations that you approved earlier this month at your meeting. De La Vista Executive Golf Course. That course is currently closed for spray out, and we'll go through the full renovation cycle. And Walnut Grove will close in May for the full renovation. This fiscal year, out to bid now is the Mira Mesa Golf Maintenance Facility. And I believe those bids are due back early April, and they'll likely come to you for award presentation in May. I know Supervisor Williamson wants a tour of the Mira Mesa. We're setting that up for you, so happy to do it. And I'd be happy to talk in depth at the need for modernized maintenance facilities to support quality golf courses.
Excuse me, who brought that to your attention? Who said, I gotta have a new facility over here? Because I always thought it was our job to maintain the facility. But who said, it's time for you to build me a new maintenance facility over here, because the one that's been going on for the last 20 years is not efficient any longer. So I need a couple $1 million.
As you know, we develop capital improvement plans for all of the amenities. That is an amenity, so that is part of the plan.
The golf course is something that we maintain.
You also maintain golf maintenance facilities with amenity funds.
We do, and I thought the developer built all of those. And then he
The
built
developer did build those. The developer did build golf maintenance facilities. You bought them and you maintain them.
Right, exactly right. So why would a developer build this one? And then we can
I can't speak for what happened 25 years ago when it was built.
And then we gotta build roads.
You want quality golf courses.
Well, to give to this facility, we need to build roads.
That is correct. That is part of the project.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to be addressing this issue? Are we going to be addressing this issue in the next meeting? here, I guess, during the conversations about even going ahead with
The
this.
project's been approved.
It has been approved.
It's been approved, yes. So now we're just going to bid, have to approve the contract. It's been approved.
I don't get into it.
There's a lot of details.
What
A lot of details.
I would like to know is, what area does this particular maintenance facility serve? Just near Mason?
I believe that's correct, but I'll verify that.
I would still do it. I think that you'll find it very beneficial.
You really don't need to go look at what's there now.
Yeah, I looked at the plans and I was confused why we need a lift and a break room and an office area.
Because people work in there.
Who works?
The maintenance contractors that we hire.
Do we, is it our contract to provide them
It is.
repair facility?
It is, that's correct.
Okay. What is the requirements, and I guess I'm going to ask, I'm just trying to catch up, I apologize.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
What are the requirements for the fertilization storage? Is that going to be here also?
The majority of fertilizer storage is off-site through our contractor with Harold's. On a monthly basis, typically those are delivered and stored at the Gulf maintenance facilities along with, sand, fuel, fertilizer, pesticide products, et cetera, et cetera. The Gulf contract, part of the contract is, you could do it multiple ways. So when the developer built golf courses, they recognized that to properly maintain golf courses, you have to have modernized maintenance facilities. That includes things like lifts and bays to service the equipment. The contracts are required to provide the equipment and maintain the equipment.
Okay.
There are people that work there, maintenance crews, so they have to go to use the restroom. There is paperwork required that we require them to complete, so we provide them a small office space to complete that stuff. The course superintendents are contracted, so the course superintendents need a place to work, so that is part of that facility. People like to take lunch once in a while too, so we give them a small room to do that in air conditioning instead of literally at Mira Mesa, instead of sitting on top of a garden, lawn tractor to do that. So I would, as Chairman Kemp said, I would recommend you come out and take a look at this.
And as part of that tour, I also recommend you take them to the hacienda to show them. I mean, everybody has this idea of this massive, elaborate lunchroom. It's not. It's a closet with 2 tables. Okay, so you really need to go see it.
I understand. I just questioned the name. That's a lot of money for a metal building.
It's not a building. It is the site work that is to get to that metal building. That is the significant cost.
Isn't it a concrete building?
It's not a concrete.
It's a metal building. Be happy to do it. I just want to summarize that the alternative, and this goes back to when the villages was originally designed, the alternative is we could require contractors to provide their own maintenance facilities on site. That would cost more for the contract. We would pay more. We're going to pay for that service. They will have to have an off-site facility to do all of the same things, store fertilizer, chemicals, gas, equipment, do all the maintenance, and transport it daily to and from the courses. It's much more cost effective to have a maintenance facility on site, co-located with multiple courses to support those courses. And again, I'd be happy to do an in-depth presentation on why golf courses build modernized maintenance facilities in co-location with the courses versus having them, 20 miles away in the community and shuttling the stuff back and forth.
I guess my biggest concern is having a whole bunch of
having a what?
A jump pile. I've been to Mira Mesa, I've golfed there, you go to turn around, and unfortunately, the residents get to see all that garbage.
Right.
And it is garbage.
Yeah.
I caution you guys on, as far as vendors, if you use contractors, maintenance, your data equipment can't stay there longer than 30 days, whatever term you want to write for, because otherwise it's going to go, well, we're using it for parts. And then we're back in the same place we are right now.
Yeah. So I think when you come out and see and we'll walk through the design, you'll see that we've built firms to hide the view from the residents to the greatest extent possible. But the way it's designed now, it is open for view. And it's not, it's a maintenance facility, so it's just like wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. You don't generally see those in the villages, but they're here.
Yeah. Cool.
Most maintenance facilities are out of sight as well.
Well, they were just, yeah, well, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So for this upcoming fiscal year, we're proposing 2 full renovations. The first one is the Oakley Executive Golf Course. It was built in 2003. No significant renovations have been completed to that course, so this one will get the standard full renovation, just like you saw out of Chula Vista, just like you see at Amberwood on Monday. The other one is El Santiago, built in 1998, so it's an old course, and it is very well due for a full renovation. So you'll see those 2 in your capital improvement plan and in the budget for next fiscal year. You'll also see several bunker sand replacement projects. As you know, in the current fiscal year, we have 2 in your area. One was Saddlebrook, which was completed, but there are 3 or 4 next year as well. There's some T repairs at Silver Lake in your budget. As you probably saw at Chula Vista and several of the other courses that we renovated, we've done a lot of enhancement work to eliminate some of these problem drainage areas where we're trying to stop the repeated cycle of relaying sod over and over again in the same area and getting the same results of washouts and having to replace the sod again. It's just a high recurring cost, and the developer has continued to give us really unlimited supply of riprap material for us to use. So you're seeing a lot of these riprap and river jack rock enhancement projects, and they look aesthetically good. They solve a lot of the drainage problems, and they eliminate recurring costs for sod replacement. So we're going to continue to do those. The Audubon Initiative, Butterfly Gardens, and tree work is a significant investment to us. As these trees age, they grow and they cast shade on the courses, and we need to do a lot of tree work to maintain those. A lot of that work was done in conjunction with the renovations to make sure that the new courses last at least 10 to 12 years. And that was just an estimate of when we need to do next renovations based on the new turf varieties, the increased maintenance, the better agronomy plans. These courses may last 20 years. So, obviously that's the goal. 10 to 12 years is just a marker for the future in the capital plan. Again, drainage improvements, golf cart path repairs have been scheduled, and we're trying to pressure wash the golf cart paths as we do these renovations as well. They've never been done before, with the exception of one of your courses. We did it during renovation.
So, Bruce, just to ask, so the Silver Lake tree repair, what came up there since we did renovation?
The renovation of Silver Lake was when I first got here about 4 years ago, I believe, and there's some tees that need some repairs done to it. I don't remember.
4 years now, they've deteriorated enough. We got to put about 75,000.
Right.
And then you said the other improvement plans here, some of this stuff you got here, the riprap and tree management, you said a fair amount of that's probably going to be associated with the 2 courses we're doing the complete renovation. Or is this also doing some things on some courses?
This is all other courses.
Okay, but not necessarily the ones we just recently renovated.
The ones we recently renovated have had all that work done.
Had all that work done.
Yes, sir.
Within that, either as part of or a little bit of addition to the initial contract to do it.
That's right. Okay. Exactly.
Just to go back to one of the other slides there, so obviously we'll be done in about 29 and have renovated all 13 courses, which is great considering you point out some of these have been done since 95 or 2001 or whatnot. And then we're using a projection of about every 12 years. So with 13 courses, we're talking about 1 per year. We're going to be showing from the projection for now anyways, starting about 30 or so.
Essentially, that's correct, yes.
Okay. If we do that, the only thing I might say is, you mentioned 5 years with the sand replenishment.
Right.
Now we're sort of a little bit off cycle if we're going to talk about it right now, going with about every 12-year course change out. I might say, well, let's look at the sand in between at the 6-year point. And obviously, put a contract out that says north 466, south 466. Any of those are that year at the midpoint right there every 12 years, get the sand replenishment. Otherwise, you close a course for about 3 months or a month or 2 months. Maybe.
It's about 2 months.
To do the sand. And then, so you do that at 5 years, then you do it at 10 years, and then 2 years later, you're
I mean,
So,
you're right.
It's just a cycle thing.
Yeah.
Might look at
In a
it.
perfect world, if we had a course open every year, we renovated it every year, it would all work out. Obviously, there's a lot of scheduling that we have to work, so 5 years is just for the capital plan improvement. We may replace the bunker sand in 6 years because we anticipate renovating in another 5 years. So we have flexibility in that. But we certainly recognize that we need flexibility on all these things. And some courses, age better than others, and with the amount of play that they all get, it's a constant evaluation cycle.
You would think the play would go down a little bit as you build more courses down south.
Well, we're also getting a lot of new residents.
But I'm saying down south.
We haven't seen a decrease in any
You haven't
courses.
seen it up north, you haven't?
We kind of talked about the traffic management and plan a little bit. I believe that some of your courses, we've done the track mats. So we're trying to install a product that will prevent the continual replacement of sod due to the walk-up areas. And so we have budgeted funds to install track mats. You see the picture up there when it's freshly laid. If you haven't seen it, it's sort of a rubber matting material that the grass grows up through and covers. Once it's mowed over and grown in, you don't even see it anymore, but it does prevent the sod from getting worn out just through the walk-up traffic as well. So it prevents a lot of the replacement of sod over and over again. I already talked about the tree management plan. A couple other things that are in your budget, the agronomy plan, we talked about it last month. We budgeted last year $100,000 per course for that. We have budgeted in your upcoming budget $120,000 per course for that. I do not think we will need all of those funds. So what we don't use obviously goes back to your working capital fund, but the cost of chemicals continue to increase, but we haven't gone through a full year of the agronomy plan. And with Mr. Jones just coming on board new as the director, we kind of need to go through that cycle and kind of get to a steady state of where the agronomy plan is, how much it costs per course. And obviously there's variations throughout the year of that, so we really need to get through a full cycle. I also talked about the increased maintenance standards. So all of your contracts expire this year for maintenance. So they will be going out to bid in the near future. Some of your contracts are several years old. I would anticipate about a 40% increase if we kept the existing maintenance standards in place. So if we took the existing contracts, put them out to bid, I would anticipate about a 40% increase because your contracts are so old. And that is based on comparisons with the more recent SLAG contracts for maintenance on similar sized executive courses. For all of the SLAG courses, we went with the higher maintenance standard, which I kind of talked about last month. And that's what we budgeted for you for next fiscal year. So that requires each course or number of courses to have a assigned contracting superintendent, assistant superintendent, as well as irrigation technician, maintenance technician, and then multiple operators and laborers per course. It has worked extremely well in the SLAG health courses as far as the combination of the agronomy plan with the increased maintenance staffing have resulted in a tremendous improvement of the quality of the courses. So the general standard in the past was championship courses in the villages were the exceptional courses, and executive courses were the municipal mediocre courses to play. We don't want that standard anymore. The direction from this board, this committee has been to improve the quality of the courses. You supported that through the agronomy plan, and I would ask that you support it through the increased maintenance as well. So you'll see more maintenance crews on each course with this plan, and the end result is for all the residents who, one of the primary drivers for living in the villages is free golf for life on the executive courses. So we don't want mediocre courses, we want exceptional courses for all those residents to play. And we've seen the results of this, so you'll see it in the budget, but obviously when we increase staffing, that will increase the cost of the maintenance as well. So you'll see that in your budget.
you got staffing on every one of these courses, and then you shut them down for 8 months, 9 months, what do you do with all that staffing during that 8-month period?
So, two things. One is we move them to other courses to augment. The way the contracts will be written, the way that they are in the SLAD areas are that if they don't staff positions, we don't pay them for those positions. So they've been pretty successful at staffing positions, but they will augment those positions by other courses. So it's all the same fund. So if, for example, they're short a maintenance technician on this course, and we're closing for renovation over here, they will move those positions to backfill, so that way they remain fully staffed under the contract. And the full renovations really focus on your primary play areas, your tees, your greens, your fairways, those kind of things, your collars, the bunkers, the under drain system, etc. There's a lot of stuff around the starters and the landscape areas. There's a lot of other work that still has to happen. So
when the superintendent's help out, I mean, are they part of that process?
Of course, yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of work that happens by the maintenance crews, even though a course is closed for renovation, that they kind of work side by side with each other.
Bruce?
Yes, sir.
You and I have talked about tightening up the day-to-day maintenance operations, and you're making some changes in those contracts. Is that correct?
We are. So the scope, the level of specificity within the scope of work for the contracts that we already have in place down south, as well as the ones we would put out to bid up here, are significantly enhanced. So not just in terms of you must have these positions filled, the scope of what you must do is also significantly increased. I know one of Mr. Jones' observations in his short time here has been a lack of consistency among contractors from course to course, depending on who has the contracts. I know that's one of his main focus areas, is developing SOPs to support the contracts, so that way we have uniform work being completed, the same set of standards that everyone uses, and that's the way the contracts are written as well.
And on page 10 here of your report, you talk about some things, CIP projects for Santiago. And you and I have had conversations about the condition of the tee boxes. Even though that course was done just a few years ago, they have deteriorated very rapidly. And is this CIP, I don't see anything about tee boxes, and there is work that's going to be done with the greens and all.
This is a full renovation, including tee boxes.
It is?
It is.
Okay, I just didn't read it in here.
I probably didn't include it, I apologize.
Yeah. So, and when is that project going to happen?
So these are projects for next fiscal year. So we have Amberwood's the last one to open from last fiscal year's. We obviously have the two this year, Walnut Grove and Bella Vista. So those will, one's closed now, one will close in May, 6 to 8 month cycle. So, they'll open late fall, early spring. We probably would close these two down, probably one early winter and the other one early spring.
And Santiago?
Yeah, so for Santiago and Oakland, they will both close sometime after October of next year, probably one would be in the winter time and one in the springtime, to kind of spread out the renovation cycle to minimize the amount of closures at one time.
So October this coming year?
Well, these are for next fiscal year. So next fiscal year would start October 1st. We would put them out to bid towards the end of this fiscal year, early fiscal year next year, and then they'd come back to you for award sometime in the fall.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank you for stepping up to the plate during this interim and doing double duties. You've been very responsive. You've done a great job in covering the interim, and
Yes, I think you'll find Mr. Jones is extremely experienced and lots of good skill sets, and he'll, his predecessor did some great work for us, and Mr. Jones will continue to do that and take it to the next level. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I believe Mr. Williams is up next with golf operations.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good morning, David Williams, Executive Director of Golf Operations. We're going to talk about what's coming down south of Turnpike, so it really doesn't affect your budget at all. It's just more of an FYI. Here's what's coming, some of the article down. So, add that backwards.
Is it a different one?
I don't know.
Oh, yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Operations. All right. So we presented this before about continuing the dream. You can go on the village's website, village.com, and you can see south of the Turnpike a lot of the courses that are coming online. We already had some courses come online this year, which is the Live Oak, Pitch and Putt, and the Laurel Oak Executive Course. So again, we had the 9 holes there, the Pitch and Putt Executive Course. Also, we anticipate Bel Air Executive Course opening up this summer. It's a little bit behind schedule. And also the Central Lake Driving Range and the Teaching Academy, which is right next to Bel Air. It's an area called Eastport. Maybe if I can back up. Yeah, okay, so let's see if this laser works. There we go. So you get right in that little area right there. That's your Eastport, and that's where those courses are going to be. For next fiscal year, again, this is for south of Turnpike. We anticipate opening up another championship course, 18 holes, somewhere in the October-November range. Also around that time, we've got 2 more executive courses in that area, Beautyberry and Honeysuckle. So I know that the residents in that area are super excited about getting more golf down there to play. So we do staff it. Part of our responsibility is to staff those. And so for these courses, we're looking at about 14 staff for the Laurel and Live Oak, and 10 staff for the Bel Air. So that's basically your starters in that.
And those are fully funded by the developer.
Correct, 100%. And same thing, fully funded by the developer is your driving range and teaching academy. I know the residents are really excited about having a place to hit some range balls down there. Currently, the Sarasota Golf Practice Center is the farthest south driving range that we have. And, so we anticipate that being very, very busy. So that driving range not only has an area for residents to practice, but on the other end, they also have going to be another location for our golf academy. And that golf academy is going to help assist our charter school golf teams and help them improve as they play their tournaments. So again, just from a staffing perspective, we certainly need some folks to do that, and a lot of times our staff will transfer down there if they live closer. A lot of folks will do that as we open. So usually about 6 to 8 weeks before we anticipate opening, we'll start the hiring process for that. We're looking at about total 29 staff for that. Same thing for Beautyberry. That's going to be a really exciting area for those folks near the Eastport. And for 7 days a week, we got usually 1 starter and 1 ambassador 3 days a week. And that is our staff.
Just a question really for Carrie more, because as you add this all in, since everything now comes out of the district working payroll for everybody, how's that doing for payroll staff and the budget? Are you anticipating these improvements of these add-ons over that can have to be absorbed with the existing staff, or increase the staff?
We took over some staff when we took over golf operations. As far as these new courses coming online, we do not anticipate needing any more administrative staff to manage that. I do want to mention, as part of the staffing agreement, they do pay a management fee. So a portion of payroll budgets, all of our administrative services are being paid for based on their budget. So we are being compensated for all of that additional work. But yes, we don't anticipate at this point needing any directly associated with golf. Certainly as we move forward with growth, the district team does grow as well, but it's not specifically because of this growth.
I'd be glad to see the district coming in down there. up those south of the turnpike, because otherwise you only have 2 ways to get north of the turnpike. But now they can have more things to do in there, and keep selling more homes then.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And moving on, we're going to have a follow-up conversation on the Savannah Center theater lease. This was something that was initially presented and brought up as part of the lease renewal for the box office. At the time, the committee asked us to look at the closet that was being utilized as essentially a concession area. This is follow-up based on the question as to whether or not the lease amount was considered a fair amount. So this, Robin Sanborn will present this item, and then if there are no questions, we will have this back on, well, if there are questions, we will have this back on for your consideration at your April meeting, as we are not asking you to take any action today.
So you said April, then we'll do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Robin Sanborn, Director of Administration and Legal Operations, and I'll be presenting our analysis of the Savannah Center box office lease and the Scarlett O'Hara Theater usage. This presentation will outline the key findings related to the lease rates, facility utilization, revenue impact, and regional market comparisons. Our goal is to evaluate whether the proposed lease and the rate rules are financially sound. We will cover the background and lease rate comparisons, the theater utilization analysis, revenue impact analysis, regional rate comparison, alternative scenarios, and our recommendation. The proposed lease agreement with the Village's Entertainment Division covers the box office and the closet space at the Savannah Center. As you know, the key terms include the rental rate of $21.60 per square foot annually. The total monthly rent would be $376.20. The annual rent total would be $4,514.40. And additional fees would be $150.23 per month for utilities, landscaping, and janitorial services. The total annual revenue for the lease would be $6,317.16. As you can see, when compared to similar leases, the proposed rate falls within a fair market range considering past capital improvements funded by the tenant. And here we have a table of district leases that we have pooled and provided you the annual rate per square foot.
The total amounts are on this chart that you just read. So.
Sure, we included in the packet at the very end a complete memo that has all that information as well. Now let's examine how the theater is currently being used. The total available hours per year is 5,400 hours. Of that, entertainment utilizes 31%, which is 1,675.5 hours. Of those hours, 531.5 hours, or 31%, were from the RLVG group performances, which provide services beyond the scope of recreation programs. Resident events were 6%. Recreation programs were 10.4%. And other activities were 10.9%. And 41.6% was unused. I would like to note that all rec centers aimed for 52% total utilization. The remainder of the hours are used for flipping between rooms for events, cleaning, and quick maintenance.
So you're saying we could actually, I didn't understand this last thing you said. So
sure.
Unused capacity is 41%. So we have the ability to book 41% more activities in that room. Is that what you're saying?
No. So not necessarily that much. The rec centers like to use 48%.
Yeah, we're right on target target of what it looks bad when you see unused capacity.
Yeah.
But it's not, because that unused capacity allows time for recreation, staff to go in there, break down tables, set up tables, move the bleachers, things like that, do the cleaning, do the maintenance. So we wanted to make sure that you understood that that unused capacity, it's not that the room can't be rented, or it's not being utilized, that is our goal to have that unused capacity.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that it is fully utilized, the Scarlet over there?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
But if you can't use it because of the breakdowns and things of that sort, that's not included in the rental capacity and cost of the facility. If you have one group that goes in and just uses the empty floor for yoga or something of that sort, there's no breakdown or setup. But if you use it for the theater, there's a lot of breakdown and setup. But that's not, that cost is not allocated to that type of use.
It's all part of the rental fee that is used when you rent the room.
And this is only the theater?
I understand. That's why I'm asking.
So when we develop the rate rule, all of that is taken into consideration. But no, we don't charge necessarily more for somebody who empties an empty room versus utilizing tables. Is that correct, Mr. Robian?
Good morning, John Rohan, Executive Director, Recreation Parks. So for clarification, there's hourly rate charges for the time the room is booked and reserved. And then there's time that staff has to set up and break down in between. Those fees aren't necessarily rolled into that charge. That's why the utilization there is, from an industry standard, you never want a facility booked 100%. If you can imagine, you can't flip the room. So we know how long it takes to set up a room, break down the room based on if it's chairs, if it's theater, if it's not tables, if it's round tables, if it's bar, if it's catering. There's lots of elements that get factored into the room setups and breakdown.
And his question though is, we don't charge somebody more to set up tables and do all of that, correct?
That's correct.
It's what attorneys refer to as non-billable hours.
That's right.
That may be true, but there's still a significant cost or loss of revenue because of the extensive time and labor and cleaning, etc. When you rent a facility like that, and one goes in there and doesn't use anything but the floor, and another one goes in there and requires an extensive setup, which has to be followed by an extensive breakdown.
So that's not really part of this presentation. Again, this is just to amend the lease to include the closet. But we can certainly have that discussion, but that is not what the basis for this is. Keep in mind, when we establish that hourly rate, we take into consideration how much it costs to prepare and break down a room every time. So it's not that they're not paying for it, it's that it is paid for as part of the hourly rate that they're renting the room for. So you can look at it as if you aren't utilizing us to set up and break down the room, you're still paying for us to set up and break down the room, even though you're not utilizing that service that we offer.
I assume too that we're also incorporating that cost for cleanup and maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a factor of part of the rental rate.
I understand that it really is a difference between rental. Someone rents an empty room that doesn't require that, and someone else that does require. That's a significantly different type of use.
Let me ask this question though. Since it is a theater, how many people rent an empty theater with nothing in it? Don't you need, I mean, it's a theater, don't you always need seats?
Do we have, yeah, that is a question. So why can't we utilize it more for revenue instead of having so much time? That's a greater amount of time than the usage. Supply and demand.
But who would rent the theater and not want seats? I mean, we're not talking about this room, right? Okay, I can't imagine anybody would rent that theater to do a yoga class. Why?
Instead of using one of these other empty rooms.
Do we ever do that?
Well, I don't know that it's rented for yoga, but certainly resident lifestyle volunteer groups, they do exercise classes in the theater. But again, they're not renting the room. That is a service that is being provided by a
Lifestyle
volunteer.
group, right.
If you're renting a theater, you're typically renting it for a production.
And we get kind of a breakdown of what the hours of usage are per type of use.
Well, if you look, it has that. Go back to the slide.
It says residence recreation, but what kind of use is that?
We'll follow up with examples.
Yeah. And an approximate hour.
We will certainly provide any information you're looking for, but the amount of staff time that has been taken on by this additional closet to a lease is probably more expensive than the added revenue that you're getting for that lease.
I sure do understand that.
This is a bigger discussion, and we're happy to provide that information. But again, it really has no bearing on if you want to add the closet in with the lease. It is more of a discussion is, are we charging appropriate amounts within the rate rule, which we look at annually, and we can certainly look at that. But that, again, we have spent a lot of time and effort on this lease amendment to incorporate a closet.
You know, I feel like you're shaming me for making a mountain out of a molehill, but this lease is going to start over again with a 5-year lease plus renewals, so it's not just for 1 year or one time. We are spending $750,000 for new flooring. Whatever happens in the theater by the entertainment division per se flows out into the rest of the Savannah Center. When they use it, and they use it during the day as well as at night, we're talking about them using the lobby areas. And I'm here often, and when they have their shows, they're using the entire lobby over there. It's even spilling down this hall here. They're using the bathrooms. They're using all the seating. They're using all the tables with snack bars and so on. And it's not just the theater that's being used. It's the whole Savannah Center that's being used for something very, very large as an event.
And going to what Carrie had just said, that is part of the rate that we charge, and we can look at that. This has nothing to do with this lease. We've already approved the lease. It's already been approved. But when we did that, the question came up, why are we not charging the developer for that closet that he sells drinks out of?
I understand
We
that.
asked for an amendment to the lease, and that's all we're trying to do is get that approved.
But it's not just the room.
I
The whole
understand.
lease is being started over again.
Only
We've
for the
already
box
approved the whole lease.
It's not the lease for them using the theater. They rent the theater. The lease is for the box office portion only. So their utilization of that theater is different than that lease for the box office.
I got the impression that the whole package is starting over from scratch.
Just the box office. The box office and the concession.
We don't have a lease agreement for them to rent the theater for their activities. And correct me if I'm wrong, they rent that room just as any other group would rent it at the resident rate.
Okay, I understand.
So that's the discussion that you want to have, but it has nothing to do with this lease. And I think it's a good discussion to have. Let's talk about maybe we should revise the rental rates or whatever. But then I caution you, if you do that, now start doing that, okay?
My apologies, I certainly never would want to make you or any other committee member feel that I'm being disrespectful or shaming you, but I just, this is a great conversation, but I don't want it to get mixed up because the lease is just for the box office.
I understand.
It's not for the theater utilization.
Yes.
And all of what we charge for that it does cover the maintenance. If you don't think it's adequate, we'll look at that through the rate roll. I just don't want you to think that this box office lease has anything to do with them using the theater. It's only if you want to continue allowing them use of the box office and the closet.
We've done that.
We already approved the box office. We went back to the developer and said, okay, now we want you to pay for the closet that you sell drinks out of.
And
that's what we're trying to get approved.
And this is the rate we're trying to figure out, just for the closet.
For the closet.
Yes.
And they actually, when you went back to the developer and said, this is what we want to do, we're going to charge you for the closet, and if I'm not mistaken, you increased the square footage price for the entire piece, the box office and the closet.
And we're making them pay retroactively.
Exactly.
When it's only $4,000, it's not, we really
This
have
is
spent.
not a lot of money.
You're right, we really have spent a lot. I mean, we have the attorney fees. I remember talking to the attorney saying, well, stop spending our money for $4,000. We gave him more than this is our contract.
We spent more staff time than the revenue.
Right, so no, and I certainly am with you in terms of, let's make the discussion thorough. Well, I do think at some point in time, we gotta kind of stop.
But Rick, let's just get this off our plate, which we can't do today, but let's bring it back in April. Let's just get this lease addendum off our plate, and then we can have a discussion about revising the rates. And if you want to talk about revising the rates specifically for the developer or for other residents, whatever, let's have that as a separate discussion. I understand where you want to go with that, but this isn't the place for it.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to say something
I
else?
just want to add for the closet and the liquor. It was the residents who approached entertainment because they were coming to shows and 800 people were having to go to a water fountain to get a drink of water before the show started. So as we do everything here in the villages with exceptional service and opportunities, the residents asked entertainment, it would be great if I could get a Coke, if I could get a bottle of water, if I can get a glass of wine, if I could have a cold beer. They're not sitting out there getting tanked. They're having a refreshment before they go into a lovely show. That's all, that's full service. It doesn't, it's really this, it's a service delivery back to the residents. And as far as using the lobby, Mr. Deacon, trying to charge. We have to figure out a rate for every lobby every time we're renting, and the lobbies are meant to get people in and out from all the different events and rooms. And now we're going to have to start saying, you can't come here because it's rented, and it destroys the whole experience for people who are residents coming to these shows and using them. There is a rate where we can take a look at all that, but where are we going? It's really a service delivery that entertainment is providing back to you guys that want to come and have a nice experience.
And I thought we did do a rate check. There was a rate check in there when I thought that.
We do. Yes, I was just about to add that. Shortly, we do get into the room rates, just a brief overview to add value to it.
Why don't you just continue? Because you have really some good information. Sure. I appreciated seeing the total revenue that's coming.
Yes. So as the lease is proposed, the total revenue generated from the Savannah Center proposed lease and theater would total $215,310. As you can see, the entertainment division rentals are a major driver of the RAD revenue. Entertainment generates 81.8% of the total revenue, while using only 31% of our available hours in that theater. Our regional market comparison evaluates rental rates at similar venues. Our findings were that Savannah Center resident rate of 104 hours is 19% below the regional average. The non-resident rate of $208 per hour is 21.8% above the regional average. The facility has the highest resident to non-resident rate ratio of 2 times, which is 50.4% higher than the regional average. This pricing structure helps maintain affordability for residents while generating competitive revenue from the non-residents. The current annual revenue with entertainment, as the lease was proposed, would be $215,310. The revenue without entertainment is $33,878, with the potential revenue loss if entertainment is removed of $181,432, which is 84.3% reduction. Even in an optimistic scenario where 75% of entertainment hours are replaced with other bookings, the facility would still see a revenue loss of $51,172. This highlights the crucial role that entertainment division events play in financial stability. As we evaluate the best path forward for the Spanish Center box office lease and theater, we analyzed the alternative scenario of charging entertainment the non-resident rate. Currently, the entertainment division pays the resident rate of $104 per hour, significantly below the non-resident rate of $208 per hour. If the non-resident rate were applied, the total theater rental revenue would increase from $174,252 to $348,504. This could theoretically boost overall revenue by that amount, which is 97.1%. However, raising the rates would likely increase the cost for the residents and could impact entertainment's accessibility and event frequency.
Just so I understand, too, I think I would just say, for the entertainment purposes, which is 31%, they pay the same rate as all the other resident recreation other. Is that correct?
Not as other. I believe is non-resident.
But the only reason I just ask is, if you add up those three, that's 27%. So 27% and 31%, roughly. So 31% is recreation, entertainment, 27% is everything else. If they're all charged at the non-resident rate, it's just amazing that the revenue coming from entertainment is $180,000, $181,000, but the revenue coming from the other 27% is only $33,000.
The green recreation portion is the recreation sponsored event, like our jazz festival, so there's no revenue driven on those.
Okay, no revenue.
And like the other events, those are all government activities, or when we have full day closures for maintenance, like when you're going to do the floors and things like that, so there's no revenue driven on those either. The only other one that would have revenue driven in it would be that resident at 6%.
Okay, so
And
the
then
6% is roughly the 33, almost 34,000.
the 6% I believe is a mix between some gratis rooms though and some charges, so that's not all revenue either.
Okay, but that adds up to what you're saying is almost 34,000 of other resident usage. I'm just trying to figure out how, see these percentages, how the entertainment one was so much higher than the other 27%. The close percentage. So you answered my question. Great, thanks.
Based on our analysis, we recommend approving the amended lease agreement as proposed. Supporting factors are that the box office lease rate aligns with other leases in the community and accounts for tenant-funded capital improvements. The theater rate rental at 104 hours for residents remains competitively priced. The revenue stability entertainment generates 81.8% of total revenue. Without entertainment, revenue would drop by 84.3%, and that's $181,432 in loss. Even if 75% of entertainment hours were replaced, the facility would still lose $51,174 annually. And with the current setup, there is 41.6% unused, indicating there's room for additional books without displacing entertainment. And final considerations, while adjusting the rental rate could theoretically increase revenue, the primary goal remains maintaining accessible entertainment options for residents. The current model strikes a balance between financial stability and community service. Thank you, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Excellent report. Thank you.
So is it fair to say that we're getting fair market value for our club?
From our analysis, yes, I think so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want a clarification. My conversation had to do with the theater rental and the fact that that entertainment activity was spreading out, theoretically, not just renting the theater, but you're renting pretty much the whole Savannah Center, because the whole Savannah Center is impacted. I was not talking about the box office or the bar. I only mentioned it in passing that activity does all, they're out there in the lobby drinking and damaging the carpets and tables or whatever with the wear and tear. But that was linked to the theater rental. I never mentioned specifically the box office or the bar, that's not what we're talking about, but you shifted the conversation.
No, I understand exactly what you were talking about, and I think most of us understood, but you brought it up when we're trying to just talk about the closet and the box office. So I understand exactly where you were going. You just made it an issue when we're just trying to get a lease signed for a closet and a box office.
That was not my conversation.
Well,
on
that's
this.
why you tabled the
Yes, exactly. Right.
But they're two separate things.
I agree.
So
with that.
I said we should bring up the discussion
But
about
the conversation just now got shifted from what I was going after about the theater lease spilling out into the rest of the recreation center. It had nothing to do with the box office and the bar.
Okay, on the April agenda, we'll put the box office lease back on there for consideration, okay? And, well, we already approved the box office, it's just the addendum for the closet. And then, Gary, at some other future point, we'll talk about the resident rate rules. And that will address both
I
issues.
agree with that part.
Okay.
What agenda would you like us to put that on? What month?
I don't think.
So,
Are we ready for
how
April, or are we pushing?
How about if we, well, we won't have necessarily anything ready. Why don't we do May, but we'll send out the existing rate roll to you now so that you have a month to review and provide us with some feedback on which specific items you would like us to come out with more information on.
Sounds perfect, thank you.
So if you don't mind, I'm just trying to summarize and hope I capture everyone good. So first, I think this was a great layout when I went through it, and everything I was looking at. Don, you had brought up, hey, does the rate seem right as far as what we're going to charge in this lease, you know, for square footage and whatnot? From that point, appreciate that. Lays it out real good, so I think we're good going forward to approve that at the April meeting. Appreciate that you brought up the fact that we had that closet area there, and the developer's willing to say, I'll go with this rate, and I'll even go with it retroactive. So very good there too. And now we've had the discussion that we'll look at. I think getting your concerns done will make that sense. So I probably will throw that out with, as John tries to look at this too, is saying, okay, this is sort of a unique beast. We got 400, 500 people to show up there to an event at times, and that's a lot larger than what we see at some other events, which has now resulted in us saying that, hey, we need to replace the carpet and the flooring in the main area. Now, does that have some kind of impact? And it's a trade balance, as we've just been discussing. Trade balance is a combination of, if we're saying this is sort of a unique beast, maybe we need to see what the rate structure is for using that theater, especially when it comes to entertainment purposes that have a large grouping. We have a different rate structure associated with that. Now, the trade-off is that, along with the fact that they're paying more for a lease, for the box office and the closet, might change the pricing that everyone starts to pay for an event. So, do you want to do that trade or not? At least we got the data to look at that, just like we had great data in this, and we can make that determination later. I think I covered it all right. Amen.
Thank you. Good summarization. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Rohan for the rec and parks.
Good morning. John Rohan, Executive Director of Recreation and Parks, here to give an overview of Rec and Parks. As we did a quarterly report a couple weeks ago, here we're talking about stuff that's going on related to to our budget and service delivery. We provided an overview, snapshot of our organizational chart. We continue to align our org chart based on our growth and service delivery and clubs and activities and programs and services as a nationally accredited recreation and parks agency. When I started 32 years ago, we had a handful of folks, and now we continue to grow exponentially to manage those lifestyle services our residents have come to enjoy and expect at the various locations throughout the community. We'd like to talk about
some John, you think the line diagram is this big?
Yeah, it's been a great ride. So some highlights, which this committee has been very supportive of the funding for our activities and programs. We continue to increase really what our residents are looking for to get the best out of their life here, and that is recreation. That's lifestyle events, that's socials, that's 5Ks, that's camp villages. The STARS program, which stands for the Special Talented Adult Resident Program, which is growing by leaps and bounds, meeting the needs of residents who have adult children with disabilities. It provides an amazing networking opportunity for not only the residents with these adult children with disabilities, but also with the actual participants who make new friends, as well as a result of offering the STARS program. We're really proud of this program. It just does wonders. We offer it throughout the entire community, and we continue to see it to grow similarly to what we've done with camp villages. The volunteer appreciation event is coming up in April, and it's our way to thank our resident lifestyle volunteer leaders for the countless service hours that they provide back to their fellow residents in leading the different resident lifestyle groups and organizations. It's a very well attended event, and it's a very good use of dollars to tell them thank you for their time, energy, and efforts to do stuff. So we highlighted just a snapshot of some of the programs that are forthcoming. We are also looking at adding another 5K road race, but this will be a 10K that will be coming up. Some highlights on the non-capital areas. We track and monitor the life expectancy, age, wear and tear, renew and replacement of our chairs, office furniture, billiards, group furniture, billiard tables. So we kind of know how long things are going to last, and also based on the utilization of the rec center on those replacement schedules. Casey Litton, our assistant director here, works very closely on tracking and monitoring all those items, and as well as we work with our property management team on the larger items inside the rec centers for property management maintenance as well. So we try to maintain those high standards, and I think we've achieved that with the right funding sources. We continue to meet the residents' expectations when they come into the rec centers, expecting working, safe equipment and supplies for them.
John, may I stop for 1 second? Just may I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm at that Saddlebrook billiard room more than I anticipated. But that furniture in there, the chairs, are as beautiful as one can imagine. They are sturdy. There's, I'm not sure what furniture you're talking about. There's like a card table and a gathering table and a couple of little side tables, but the chairs themselves, people sit in to wait for the next their opportunity to play or to watch other people, are as beautiful and sturdy as one can imagine. I can't even think why we would be changing out that furniture in that billiard room, I guess, is my question, because it's beautiful.
Great question. And what we try to do is presentations. People look at a piece of equipment today, but keep in mind this budget doesn't take place until October, and so the furniture may not be replaced in October, may be replaced in that fiscal year. So let's not assume it's going to be in that same condition 18, 16 months from now. We're projecting on the current life of that furniture and then the wear and tear. So the budget dollars are there, so that way if it does need to be replaced, the dollars are allocated. If we feel it get through another year, then of course, we won't expend those dollars, but those dollars have been earmarked for that replacement. But that chair might look great today, but 18 months from now, it's budget year is in place, it's time to be replaced. So let the system work through the process, and if it deems necessary to replace, we'll make sure that we do that.
May I continue on that then? So, that furniture, where does it go for me to buy it? Say I want to buy that furniture because it's so sturdy and so beautiful. Where would I go to buy it?
We have our vendor information that we can share with you.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So, does it go out to auction or?
Oh yeah, it gets well. Actually, I'm sorry. To understand, I thought you want to buy new.
No, not
once
new.
it gets well, if it gets surplus, if we have a district approved surplus process and procedures where it will be sent to the auctioneer, he'll pick it up and then he will auction it, and then you can ask for when that happens, and you can go try to buy it. But you can't buy it directly from us.
Just going back to what that woman was speaking of this morning about the hacienda tables compared to the, keep it in mind.
Yeah, we do have it. Thank you. Yeah, we work very closely with Gail, and we'll take a look at it. But and we appreciate residents' recommendations such as yours, weather furniture. But with 150,000 residents, we really have a system in place for renewal and replacement and Chula Vista tables that really, got. What happens is, if you're familiar with billiards, it's like taking your car in over and over and over for maintenance repair. The mechanic sound says you need a new car. Eventually, the rails and the covering and the table fabric there won't line up anymore. So it doesn't go back together every time you rebuild it. So that's when we started realizing we got to get a new table. So we will certainly take a look at La Hacienda with all of that.
Is La Hacienda on the agenda for? I mean, we're going to shut down La Hacienda for an extended period of time twice. Once for air conditioning and then for remodel.
Yes.
Is it on that?
So if and when we work with BPM and on the capital improvement plan for La Hacienda, that's when we would probably try to redo the billiard tables, because that's when the complete renovation is going to take place. To put brand new tables in and dismantle them all and then have to store them for a year or a significant amount of time, that's not a good use of dollars, because that may not go back the way it is original intent. So we would sync that project up as part of that capital improvement plan. So that was all that I had. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, John. We talked over the years about a couple of things. One was the monitors as touch screens in the recreation centers. And what we have now is more of an advertising monitor that talks about the programs that are coming up. But if a resident were to come in, whether they're a snowbird or a renter or whatever, to the recreation center, they can't walk up to that monitor and find out what activities are going on in this particular rec center, or where they could go to find table shuffleboard because it's not in the rec center, and things of that sort. Is there any plans to convert these monitors that are at the rec center?
Those would not have the ability, without an extensive amount of dollars, to upgrade. I'd have to get with TXG to figure out how that would happen. What we are doing is using the Villages, the app. People can get the app, and also our ActiveNet software is coming out with a possible app that would also have that ability. So it would be on your phone or your tablet that you do. So we're looking at what would be the best model to do that. But right now we haven't solidified that, but currently people can get that information on their app, on the app, on the Village app. So it is available for them.
Okay, and there have been discussions over the years, and strangely enough, Carl Bell, one that brought it up, and so at the beginning of today's meeting, about the recreation use. Are there any plans in the future to upgrade it or change it or make it more user-friendly or whatever?
So part of our summer projects, we always review the Rec and Parks publication. If anyone's been following over the last 1, 5, 10, 15 years, it's gone through some great enhancements and changes with our banner ads, promotion of all the different programs and services. It is one of the most highly sought out used resources by our residents in the community. I will email you that survey that was done. It's in like the 84th percentile of the #1 way residents find and access information. So that tells us that they're using it and reading it. So as far as reformatting it, we certainly will take a look about page utilization, content information, font size, placement of schedules, table tennis schedules, for example, will start showing up now that we have the table tennis facility. So overall, reformatting the publication will take into consideration. It's also available in a digital format as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Morning again, Bruce Brown, Assistant District Manager. So Mr. Harris is out of town for a wedding. Not his, but someone else's. So you have the B team. So property management, as you know, you know the world of work of property management. It touches literally everything in the villages, significantly enhances or adds to the resident lifestyle and the resident experience of the villages, whether it be landscaping, obviously in this case, all of your amenities. So we'll talk through the 25, 26 major focus areas, happy to answer any questions as we go along. But we tried to break this down in the presentation so it's very easy to see what is planned and where it is planned. So $250,000 in wallpaper replacements. We're coming up on the cycle again where we're facing a lot of roof replacements and HVAC. So you have $730,000 in roof replacements, just over $3 million in planned HVAC replacements, $242,000 in fire alarm control panel replacements. Those have aged out and they're past their service life. That's why we're replacing those.
Mr. Brown, before you move on.
Sir.
Hacienda Recreation Center, we're replacing the roof there. We got a budget of how many millions of dollars to fix that place up. Is this part of the $11 million being set aside for next year or 2 years from now?
No,
This is not. Okay, so we put the air conditioning system in, and now we're going to put a new roof on, and we put the new room on here, with a ping pong.
Game room, yes sir. Yep.
So how much is that roof? I'm just, is that a flat roof, or does it look like tile? Maybe the tile's just a decoration and flat.
This is a portion of the roof repairs and replacements. So this is not the entire recreation center.
No, it's not just stone.
No. For $730,000, you cannot replace all these roofs. So it's a portion of it.
Just a portion of the roof on La Hacienda.
That's right.
Is that a couple $100,000?
I don't know the exact amount, obviously, until we put it out to bid, we won't know the exact amount.
Thank you.
And the softball, is that the concession seat? I don't know what the field ticket booth is. At Saddlebrook softball.
It is, it's one of the buildings.
Concession seat.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Exterior painting, as you know, we have a capital plan for everything, or a maintenance plan for everything, and that includes painting. So these are all due up about $100,000 for exterior painting of all of those postal stations. $225,000 flooring carpet replacements for the locations listed. $128,000 in countertop replacements, and $125,000 in the continuing sports court resurfacing program.
So, Bruce, within the city courts, does all this get captured into there?
It does.
Exterior painting, whatnot?
It does.
Everything you said is
everything
you're
gets
progressing that.
Everything gets
That gives you a better flavor of how to manage things.
That's right.
In the future.
No, absolutely.
What to put into the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't sure if it was more big ticket items like base
Everything.
tax and all that.
Everything. Even
Just
the work order for broken faucet is in city works.
Okay.
So we have some mill and overlay, the Paradise Fitness Trail, El Santiago VRC, dock restoration is $30,000, $110,000 in sports court fencing replacement, a lot of bocce court replacements, $90,000, sound system replacements at Mulberry Grove of the others. $30,000 for kiln maintenance, $166,000 pool renovations at the south side, one is desperately needed. $90,000 in exterior door replacements, $40,000 for Savannah flag replacement, $274,000, that's a full demo replacement of the restrooms at this facility, Savannah Rec Center. $133,000 in trellis replacement, $54,000 in lobby furniture replacement at Salabrook.
Yeah, before you move on, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Sure.
Drove by this real grand postal station, and I looked really hard for a trellis. And I see, not, postal stations going.
It's at the pool.
That's at the pool, right? There was a couple of them. I just want to make sure that, and the 90,000 for the La Hacienda Recreation Center door, that's not part of that $11 million budget that's out there either. This is another add-on.
So the La Hacienda project is, as you know, is still several years out.
Yeah.
So we need to replace the chiller unit because it wouldn't last that long.
Yeah.
These are doors that need to be replaced now. So obviously when we do the full renovation of that, we're not going to replace doors we just replaced, so those would not be on the list of things to
Just
have.
curious, 90,000. Thank you.
If you take a look at the long-term capital plan, this kind of rolls up into major categories. So for next fiscal year, it's a total of $7.4 million for capital. You move on to the, and that of course excludes some of the major capital projects, such as your Paradise Recreation Center, et cetera. 26-27, it's about $11.5 million. That does include your La renovation, which is budgeted at $8.1 million. And you can see the future out years as well. Where there's opportunity, you get less confidence in the out years. You build your capital plan based on the frequency of when these things should be done. Obviously, we evaluate everything to see if it really needs to be done. So, when you start looking 5-10 years out, you have a plan that you base your budget on, and based on the actual condition assessments that we do, because we do condition assessments of everything literally every month, we'll make a determination if those need to be completed the next fiscal year. If they don't, they get deferred. So you'll see the spike is at 3031, which is the major renovation for the Savannah Recreation Center, and that takes you through 32-33. You'll start to hit the cycle beyond that, where other renovations will come due for recreation centers.
Bruce, can you give us an idea of what's envisioned for the Savannah reservation?
I think it would be easier if I send it to the committee via an email, kind of a breakdown of the essential scope of work. But it's typically a replacement of all of the interior fixtures and fittings and windows as needed, HVAC, which I think we have a separate project for this facility for that. Flooring as needed, new paint. It makes the facility look essentially brand new again.
Aren't we doing the flooring already?
We're doing the flooring because it needs to be done now versus waiting until fiscal year 30. So obviously we will not replace the flooring at that time in all areas. We're not replacing all the flooring in this facility now. We won't replace, again, it's similar to the doors. We're not going to replace what we just replaced just because we're doing a renovation.
And like you're not doing any exterior work, or
no, there's exterior work.
The lighting on the front, last time I looked, was gas lighting.
I believe that's correct.
And
Yes.
it seems to be on even during the day. Is that correct?
I do not know that, but I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's going to light it.
Yeah, right. Well, it could be on a timer. It could be or something that's like that.
So, when we do our condition assessment throughout all these facilities, we take we make a long list of what needs to be updated, renovated, replaced. A lot of that's based on the life expectancy of certain things, whether it's HVAC, the sound systems, the fire alarm panels, your stage equipment that you have here, that kind of thing. And then refer back to the residents is a brand new facility that looks as good as it did the day it was originally, the ribbon was originally cut on it. And that's the goal. So we maintain it throughout the life cycle of the asset. When we do a major renovation, we do significant improvements to it.
One of the reasons I asked that, first of all, because it's on the list here, but secondly, years ago, before there was a Sharon Theater, which is Church on the Square, this committee entertained the idea of totally redoing the theater complex itself here at the Savannah Center. And one of the things that they were giving consideration to was making it totally just the theater. And they were talking about elevating gradually, eliminating the floor section, but it's called breaking in theater terms, so that everyone has a seat row that's slightly higher than the others. Residents at that time, sitting in the floor section, where the folding chairs were not real comfortable for a multi-hour presentation, even with an intermission. And they were buying cushions that were about 4 inches thick to raise them up to make them more comfortable and also to be able to see over the head. But everybody was doing it, so it didn't accomplish that purpose. But and they were also talking about moving the lighting and sound control room from a moving thing to the back and up at the top of the theater, so that it was not right down there in the middle of the audience and so on. Then we got a note from the developer suggesting that we hold off on doing that at all, because there were some plans in the works regarding the Church on the Square. So we held off, and we ended up, long story short, with the Sharon. And so I don't know if we're going to do some kind of a major renovation here, whether consideration is being given to remodel that theater so it is more of a theater where people can actually see and not be in these folding chairs that do require multiple setup and breakdown and so on.
Yeah, so one of the things we do is we certainly work very, very closely with the recreation staff, who certainly collects the input of residents as well, and any changes that we make. So certainly, if there's a desire to incorporate stadium seating or alternate seating into a design, we'll certainly look at that. And then, as we do with any project, we present it to you for the concept approval, and if you like it, we move forward with the design work, and then we bring it back to you for put it out to bid and bring it back to you for final award. So ultimately, this committee is the one who drives the input into what you want in the facility, and based on resident feedback, we take that into consideration, and we try to incorporate everything we can, try to keep it within budget.
And since this project isn't scheduled until 29/30, that's when engineering, when would those discussions take place? What year was that? Probably 28, what again? 3 years out?
I apologize.
It would probably be the previous year prior to it.
It's 29/30, we probably started talking about that in 28, 29.
Yes. Okay. Just like we did with Paradise.
Okay. So we have about a 3-year window here. Okay. That's it. She covered you.
Sure. Yeah. So typically, on these capital plans, we throw the whole project in 1 year. Typically, as Ms. Douglas said, when we get to the actual budget for the year before that, we'll put the design work in there as a separate, piece. So we do the design work 1 year, execute the construction the second year. I apologize. I asked Mr. Wiley from District Property Management to make sure that I was correct on the roof replacement for the hacienda. It's the terracotta section only in that roof. So that facility has different roof structures on it. That's the terracotta piece of it.
Yeah, of course, at the time, the Savannah Center was the only performing arts theater in the entire village. And Sharon, and now we got Tracy further south at Eastport. So, but I think that this would be a good time to consider upgrading that theater.
You know, I know they take those chairs out and they do, they have some shows that are, they put the tables up, like cocktail table.
For dinner theater.
Yeah, well, they have tables and chairs and they do appetizers and cocktails and that kind of thing. I think they did it for New Year's Eve.
Silent reading.
Yeah, so by doing something permanent, which is what you're talking about, it would eliminate the ability to do that.
We still have all these rooms that can be opened up and so on for that type of activity.
You wouldn't have to stage though.
We're 3 years down the road.
We got
Yeah, I know, we have got time.
We're 3 years down the road.
Okay, and I know.
So pressing along,
Go ahead.
obviously you're well aware of the Paradise Recreation Center project that bid is due back at the end of April. Based on that timeline for us to review, it could possibly be at your May meeting, or if not, definitely at your June meetings for final award. We've talked about La Hacienda quite a bit, so that's an upcoming project. And
What do you think about my $19,000?
we always think about your money, sir. What you'll see in your budget for next fiscal year, as I've talked about, is for Savannah Center, you'll see the engineering design work in your budget for next fiscal year, with the construction of the following fiscal year. And the rest are just pretty pictures of all the great work that district property management does around the villages. Happy to answer any questions if you have any, but otherwise I can complete my portion of this.
I appreciate the layout, it's a nice layout, with caption, top category, and different use of thanks for I appreciate that presentation, to look at and understand, get on your own.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our.
Yes, ma'am. You do have the entire budget packet in your, both on the agenda and in your handouts. We will continue working over the next month or two to finalize these numbers and get everything presented to you. Again, our next follow-up will be in May during your normal meeting. Then you will approve the preliminary budget in June with final approval in September.
Okay. And that's your district manager report, I'm assuming? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Committee member comments.
Yes, for the day, thank you.
We got you out of here by 12:30.
Remarkable. I just thank all the presenters, they did an excellent job putting this stuff together, that's what I'm supposed to.
I'd be interested to know if the audience has any comments or input.
I'm sorry. Is there any audience comments or input? None.
And I just enjoyed this meeting, so I spoke up a little bit too much. I just want to let you know that my wife is taking me on some trip for the next 2 months. I won't be here. I know you're going to miss me. I know we are. I can see Nehemiah. It'll be 2 months of meetings, but I got 35 days traveling.
Well, have a good time.
Have a wonderful trip.
My thing.
I'll keep it short, because I know we're all on, and tell my audience, like, we want to get out of here. So my only comment, great, a lot of good information. As I mentioned earlier, as we look into the next budget meeting, find the data here, and Brandy, so as I mentioned, we show the 5 million sort of straight line in the out years, what that might mean, because like, we look at the capital improvements right here, 26, 27, we show expenditures operating 38 to 790, capital improvements 4,678,000. Yet we know we got 11.5 million next year is what we're projecting for capital improvements. And then the 30 we're projecting, we show 5, and then we start sort of 5 million going. We already know that's going to be a $13 million year when it includes Savannah next year. But then the next year we drop down to about 500,000. So I know you'd love to always have expenditures in the capital improvement area, so the steady state, you can't do that based on what's probably going on. So how we sort of factor that in, so that just helps us as we look at the how years we good. Again, with community watch, I know with Nehemiah that we look at those things there. What we talked about was the gates, to have understand that people that, and all of us included, I'm sure at this table here, is that we've had the mandates, you like it, but what's the best thing going forward? So as we continue to pull that into our budget aspects of things, since that factors in as a over $3 million figure price tag by looking at the budget next year as to what that might be. So hope to see some other improvements other than the great 1.9 they already took a look at there. And then as the other thing that I'm looking factor into our next meeting would be, since Bruce mentioned maybe a 40% increase in what we're looking at in the maintenance contracts for the Pacific golf courses, is that factored into the numbers here or not? And so I'd like to see that factored into our next budget discussion also, to make sure we're sort of looking at things as we think they're really going to be panning out for us. And that's about all I have as related to the budget. But otherwise, a good session, very good thing.
Okay, it was a great session. I appreciate everybody's input and comments. It's always a good discussion, and we bring a lot of things to light that need to be discussed and talked about, and I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, tagging on to what Rip said, I'm concerned, purchasing not here today, but I am concerned about the contracts that automatically, that started years ago, they had to negotiate the contracts, even on the renewals, if they wanted to. You started at the current contract, and then you negotiated increases. And so sometimes they factored in, if it was a 3-year original contract, they factored in the CPI. But there was never any automatic increase. And most of the time, the renewals stayed right where the 3 years had been previously because they wanted to keep the contract. Then we started seeing in those contracts a suggestion that we could negotiate with the contractors up to 3%. And it was part of the contract. And if I'm a contractor, I'm saying, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to go for the 3%. Now we're talking 5%. And I think it's a mistake. Obviously, we want to keep good contractors. We don't have to put up with bad contractors. But for us to suggest ahead of time that they can come back and want to go with as much as a 5% increase, I think it's a mistake to do that.
I think we added that to the agenda for the next month. So when Melissa's here,
but I'm really concerned about this idea of 40%. Obviously, we want to take care of the golf courses, and we want to do it right. And maybe the combination of doing it right and better than we were before is going to justify 40%. But nevertheless, that seems very, very steep. And
well, I don't know if Bruce is still here, but I think he said the reason for that is because we're standardizing the type of work that we're asking the contractors to do, which he had anticipated would be an increase of 40%.
Right, right, I heard that.
Because we're doing increased maintenance. It's not an increase over for the same service.
Right.
The scope of the
We're enhancing the service.
Yes, right.
The scope of the contract.
Yes, I agree.
And that is certainly something that was brought up because of the conditions of the courses last year. So there are several things that we did through executive golf to enhance the delivery of service from the contractors. One of them was we're purchasing our own fertilizer and moving forward with that. This is the second step that Project Life has already implemented. You don't have to do it, but this is something that if you want the courses to be in better condition, this is what we think is going to get them there, but it is a change in the scope and you're going to pay more for it. If you don't see a need for that, we certainly don't have to, but we are seeing improvements in the course itself now that they have implemented these new requirements.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
That's that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.